Okay, I'm calling the regular council meeting for Coburg for the June 5th, 2017 to order. And as usual, we will begin by taking a moment of reflection. And when we see what's going on around the world today outside of Canada, we certainly have lots to reflect on. So please join us just for a moment of reflection. Thank you. Okay, I'll begin the meeting by asking Deputy Mayor Henderson if there are any additions to the agenda.
Yes, Mayor Brockenier. There's a delegation from Patrick Bonneville and John Lee, Phoenix Genesis Development, regarding heritage grants and loans, Phoenix Genesis Investments, Cultural Heritage Impact Assessment, and the Heritage Conservation District. A delegation from Kevin Burt, Abbott Boulevard, Coburg resident, regarding the proposed construction of the sidewalk on Abbott Boulevard, Coburg, will be presented at the meeting. The action recommended that these matters be added to the agenda.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Rowden. Any discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Are there any declarations of interest from members of council tonight? There are not any, Ms. Brace. We can proceed.
Your Worship, we have the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
The action recommended that council adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting held on May 15, 2017.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Darling. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, at this time we have a presentation by Ashley Purdy, the Communications Officer, presenting Mayor Brockenier with the Markham Gold Award, the Communications Department won for the Town of Coburg's website.
Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. So on behalf of the Communications Department and the project website team, including staff Kristen Salvig, Aaron Wakely, and Renee Champagne, and myself, we'd like to present yourself on behalf of the organization and council our gold award that we won. It's called the Gold Hermes Creative Award for the redesign of our website. So a little background on this award. The Hermes Creative Awards is an international competition for creative professionals involved in the concept, writing, and design of traditional materials and programs and emerging technologies. The competition is one of the largest of its kind in the world. A look at the winners shows a range in size from individual communicators, such as ourselves, to media conglomerates and Fortune 500 companies. The competition is so well thought of in the industry that national PR organizations, local ad clubs, and local business communicator chapters are all entrants. Entries come from corporate marketing, communication departments, advertising agencies, PR firms, graphic design shops, production companies, web and digital creators, and freelancers. So on behalf of myself and Kristen, representing the website team, we are so pleased to present to you our Gold Award for the website.
Your Worship, at this time under delegations, we have Kate DeGrochi here, the Coburg resident, regarding a request for an exemption to the sign bylaw number 08-2009.
Welcome, Kate.
I'm a little shorter than the last speaker. Okay, here we go. My name is Kate DeGrucci, and basically I've written just a little letter explaining what we would like. It's very simple and short. Don't worry. We'll get everybody out of here. Okay. Please accept this letter as a request of exemption of the lawn sign bylaw. My best friend Kelly Stanford and I are on a mission to raise $10,000 for a local Northumberland mom of 4 young children, 10 and under, who has been diagnosed with a very aggressive form of stomach cancer. We're hosting a fundraiser on June 24th at 604 Willow Crescent in Coburg, and would like to place signs around the Westwood area, including along William Street and Elgin Street, 5 days prior to the event. We will remove the signs within 24 hours after the event is over. The event is scheduled from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. on June 24th. In the event of rain, we would hold our sale off until July 8th, but would remove the signs on June 24th and place them up again on June 3rd. July 3rd, not June 3rd. That would have passed. We hope that the town would consider this, and we'd be very grateful. This is a young mom who desperately needs this money, and the more people that we can get to our event, the more we can raise for her. And she's a customer of ours. Kelly Stanford owns Mom to Mom Boutique and Consignment downtown, and I'm her store manager. This is a mom who is a customer and consignor of ours, and also a friend that I went to college with. And she is living in a Toronto hospital right now, fighting for her life. And this is something that will bring more people to our event, and something we're very passionate about and hope that you would consider. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Kate, for the presentation. So if I read this correctly, you really need approval on June the 19th, which is 5 days before the 24th.
Correct.
Which would be the day of our next committee of the whole meeting.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to. There is a delegation action on this on your presentation. It's early in the agenda, so I'm just going to open up to other members of council who may have some questions of clarity on this. Councillor McCarthy.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your initiative to help this family. Because our next committee of the whole meeting is June 19th, and this would actually come under my portfolio of protection services with the sign bylaw, we're meeting tomorrow. Okay. Can I ask you, if we consider this in committee tomorrow and bring back a recommendation June 19th, does that give you enough time for your planning, making the signs, and posting them?
On June 19th?
Yes.
Post them on June 19th?
Yes.
Yes,
That's fine.
Okay, because there are options for us to hold an approval of a committee of a whole report, so thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions for Kate while she's here? So, Kate, you're looking at, if these signs are going to be local, not all, they won't be all around town? They'll
No.
be in the Westwood and area?
That's correct.
And Burnham Street, probably?
Basically, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? And, well, thank you very much, Kate. So
Can I ask a question? Sorry. Just
Sure.
to clarify. When you said the 19th, do we need to come back here on the 19th, or you would just let us know?
We will notify you.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Your Worship, at this time, we have a delegation by Patrick Bonneville and John Lee, Phoenix Genesis Development, regarding heritage grants and loans, Phoenix Genesis Investments, Cultural Heritage Impact Assessment, and the Heritage Conservation District.
Okay, welcome, Patrick and John. Both of you, are both of you making the? Is it a joint presentation, Patrick?
No. Well, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. Let's put it that way.
Okay, so I just want to be clear on on the timeline. So if you're just making a delegation, it's 10 minutes. If there's two of you doing, it's 15.
Yeah, we were told that it was going to be
You're
a short presentation, so I kept it short. So.
Okay. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Patrick.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillors and Your Worship, for this opportunity. I sat down last week and I started to watch the the meeting online, which was very good, and then I started to hear some of the things that I didn't understand at the time, and that was being that there was grants that were being taken away for something we had no idea that was even on the table. Apparently, there was an ongoing open file that was given to councillors before the meeting, and obviously, because now I've been in contact pretty heavily with Aaron Blair regarding this open file, which is a heck of a lot less than what it seemed like it was during the meeting. Like, it sounded like it was something that had something to actually do with what we were proposing. I want to make it very clear that the window grant, or the windows that we want to replace, and the grant that we're asking for has nothing to do with anything in that building. It has things to do with how that building is to look from the street. And I can tell you that there was no work or open workmanship that was being done in that building during any time in 2016. Everything that was in that building, everything that is in that building, was the way it is and the way it was when it was done 15 years ago. So they've had many opportunities to walk through this building over 15 years or 20 years to see that there's no workmanship going on and there's nothing strange. So it was odd that we weren't contacted to say, listen, there's a file, maybe we can talk about this before we take this grant away. And it's important. The loan wasn't as important because, quite honestly, we'd be giving it back as soon as we sell something. And, it just seems like an awful lot of paperwork and a lot of lawyers that would be involved by the time that would be done. So that really wasn't on the table. But certainly pulling that grant is something that's quite important to us. So I wanted to make it clear that I have been speaking to him, and he seems to think it's not a big deal. But if it is showing, and I know that that's the process, you would check to see that all recipients would have no files that would be open, no work orders that are there, and that's due diligence, and I get that. But just to tell you that where we're at on this, and I don't know whether that's something that still could be put back on the table. So I'm asking that maybe we could defer that to speak about it again, or it doesn't have to be certainly anything doesn't have to be decided on this evening, unless you want to. So, and that's the first part of the presentation. I just wanted to go over that because, quite honestly, we didn't know about it until the Tuesday, and then it came to light, and it was like, what is this? And so that's that part of it. The next part is just a very quick presentation on what we're doing in this town, what we have done in this town, just because I don't think that people understand the amount of revenue that we're producing from properties that never produced revenue. Especially when I say revenue, I'm talking tax revenue. And, our basic mandate on everything that we do is to put people in downtown. We have a lot of vendors that are passionate about what they do. They have very nice stores, and they've worked hard to do that. We've got to put some people downtown. The only way to do that is to develop buildings downtown, and there's nobody else that's doing what we're doing. So, I'm going to produce, or I have produced, a small PowerPoint presentation just to show the numbers of basically what we've got, the amount of people we're putting downtown, and then obviously I do have an incremental property tax revenue, kind of projected revenues of what, I think it works out to something around 10% of all of the revenue that the rest of the taxation is bringing in. So I think that folder that you've got, Mayor, is just the same as what you're going to see on this. So it's a very short presentation. I know we don't have a lot of time, and I want to give the rest of it to John. So I'll go through this really quickly, and for people that don't understand exactly what we've developed and how it looks and how it did look before. So this is one of the first ones. This was Mariah's Key as it was purchased in an unfinished state. And we developed that to something that looks like this. It's valued at around $3 million. Tax revenues in our summary, and I think you'll see that it's something that will be enjoyed. 79 King Street West. Before King George Muse was started, it was basically a furniture store that was all brick, boarded up, didn't look very attractive. That was 89, the way it looked. That was the beginning of what we did. And obviously, these stores seem to keep showing up in brochures and in a lot of photographs all over the internet for what a typical heritage town should look like. And as well, we've showed up in this brochure for the town of Coburg again. So I think we pretty well typify what heritage really is all about. This was the back of 79 King Street West before we started. It was pretty unattractive. Some old fire escapes. This is the way it looks today, kind of a interlocking stone, some nice patios, some nice decks. That was the actual walls of 79 King when it was the furniture store. This is what it looks like now. There is 11 11 commercial vendors in there, and this is a $5 million project with 17 residential units that basically never had that kind of taxation coming out of it. Thomas Gilbard School. I mean, a lot of people have speculated that it would have been something different, but I think basically from what I know about it, the wrecking ball would have been where it would have been at least for most of it. You know, it wasn't very attractive, and it didn't have a lot of, it was a big building. We started to cut some windows, we started to do some demolition, and we ended up with what you see here. There's 35 units, 70 people downtown. They're enjoying the merchants, $15 million value. That's only half of it. There's another $18 million in value and another 70 owners. So that's 140 people that are enjoying our merchants and our farmers market and things like that. Everybody wants them down here. We're putting them down here. You know, this is just some of the way that we've done finishes in there. Some of the detail. This is bringing us to Heritage Harbor, which is our pet right now, and it's my baby. King George Inn, we're transforming this into some townhouses. This is the same view as you just saw here. So it's going to kind of neaten that up, and I think we've proved that we've done that before just based on 79 King Street, especially that rear part of that. That was pretty crummy looking. So there's your view from the north to the south, and of course there's your view when it's finished. It's pretty streamlined and nice. We're not changing the look of that building. I mean, obviously that's part of the deal, and obviously those windows that were going to go in that red building, that was what the grant was for. So we have Heritage Harbor Townhomes with a potential up to 80 suites because we have the land that goes all the way to Hibernia, combined with all different kinds of units, townhouses, mid-rise, retrofitted buildings, and again, that spans over to Hibernia. Potential suites of 80 more, 160 owners living and shopping downtown with a potential value of $40 to $50 million. That's a significant amount of taxation considering that property like that previously, I mean, even same with the Gilbard School. I mean, schools don't pay taxes. I think I'm right on that. Jails probably don't pay taxes. This is going to be something that will be, I mean, this is a serious amount of money and a serious amount of people downtown. Everybody wins. So I think that was everything I had to say. And I'll leave this to John for the rest of it. And I do have this property tax revenue chart that could be handed out. As I say, we're not looking for any kind of a decision tonight on anything. We're just looking for an ear to understand exactly how important this is to Coburg.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Welcome, John.
Yes. I think I've got the hard bit, actually, because Pat's got the pictures, and the pictures tells 1,000 words. One of the things that Pat did touch on at the beginning, though, was this magazine, which is produced by the town of Coburg. We've been in so many magazines, and so many County of Northumberland magazines, showing our streetscape that we developed on King Street that I can't count. We've never received a penny for the photograph either, by the way. So we'll be sending a royalty statement shortly. But anyway, the point is that obviously somebody in the town recognises that we actually do produce good heritage work. Now, I was told that you wanted the presentations to be short, and I'm going to try and make them short, actually. But one of the things I did want to talk about, which is nothing really to do with us per se, is the Downtown Heritage District. And I've taken the liberty of copying the heritage districts, and I've got a copy for every councillor. I think it's high time that we did something about enlarging the district. It's somewhat foolish when Coburg's Heritage Harbour is not even in a heritage district. And it's an odd way to do it. And I've been told, and I've asked 1,000 times to various committees, that we should do something to change this, and I've been told yes, it's in the works, but it hasn't been so far. So if I could pass those around, everybody can see exactly what we're talking about. Patrick's comment about the property tax revenue, that's spot on. That's what we've created, and we haven't taken any money from the town for that. The grant that Patrick's talking about is very small anyway. And we have spent millions of dollars, and we've got millions of dollars invested in the downtown of Coburg. And as far as we can calculate, there's a few $1 million coming every year towards the property taxes. It doesn't all go towards the town of Coburg, I appreciate that. Some of it goes to the schools, and some of it goes to the county. But there's an awful lot of revenue that we're generating, which really then brings me back to why I'm here tonight. And by the way, this is the second time I've flown back, so I'm getting my mileage points well used. I've prepared a rather extensive briefing note, which I'm not going to read because it's too long. What I'd ask everybody to do, every member of council, is to read this and perhaps absorb it. I'm going to ask for a deferral of the vote that you were going to take tonight on the motion that was passed last week, so that everybody can understand where we sit and get some feeling for what, for what we've done in the past and what we intend to do in the future. But we do expect, how can I put it, to be treated in reasonable manners. I saw the report on the chia, as they call it, and I saw that the planning department said that it's been implemented all the way through Ontario under the provincial statement, and I can't find it in there, Your Honour. And I've got copies of that if people want to read it. Obviously, the province wants heritage to be preserved. We all want heritage to be preserved. But it doesn't actually say what was stated in the memo to you last week. And I've taken the liberty, and I'm not going to read all this, but I've spoken to a large number of towns like Aurora, Barrie, Belleville, Bradford, Brampton, blah, 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 blah. And it only seems that 1 out of 6 of the towns that I called are actually insisting upon the chia, which is the thing that we're very concerned about because it's expensive. And Councillor Darling asked me last week or last time, how much was it? We've got another quote, it's roughly the same amount, but it isn't really just that, because we'll have to use our own people, our own architects, so the cost might be $15,000 by the time we're finished. And Glenn did in fact inform me last week that for every portion of the jail, which we're going to be doing in separate stages, we'll be doing another cultural heritage impact assessment. Now, what I'm suggesting is that, first of all, we think we know what we're doing, and we think this highlights it. And we don't really want to pay somebody $10,000 or $15,000 to tell us what we think we already know. And we've done by far the greatest amount of work in Coburg, both in the downtown and here. Well, it's all really the downtown. And we'd like to be recognised for it. And we'd like to have some exceptions. And we've never asked for any other exceptions in the past. So what I'm going to do is leave this with you and put it on the table. And then I've kept it within the 15 minutes, I think. So if you could, Ian, if you could pass those around. And there's the, you probably know all about that, the revenue. And that's the essence of our presentation tonight.
Okay, well, thank you, John and Patrick. I'm going to open up to members of council for any questions of clarity for either Patrick or John, based on the information they've presented here tonight. Councillor Rowden.
Quick question on the map here in the Downtown Heritage District. You have penciled in here CJ. What does that mean?
Oh, no, the reason for that is that's Coburg Jail.
Okay,
and,
thank you.
And I do want to point out that when we came to Coburg in 1999, I think we're almost becoming natives now. When we came here, the jail was vacant, of course. It had been sold by the County of Northumberland or whoever. The planning department told us at the time we could take the walls down, the concrete block walls, and we could take the cell block down. And we chose not to do that, but we could have demolished them in 1999. And that's really the subject that we're talking about now, with looking for a heritage study on something that could have been demolished. And that's why I highlighted where Coburg Jail is. And the other point about that is that Coburg Jail wasn't in the Heritage District then. It's been put in the Heritage District. We've no complaints about that because we like heritage, but we don't want to be penalised for that. And you'll note that the Coburg Jail is right at the very eastern edge of the downtown commercial core Heritage District. And right across the road, we're not looking at the nicest liquor store I've ever seen in Ontario. We're not looking at much else. And further south, of course, immediately where our land ends, it's not in the Heritage District, and neither is it across the road. So I'm just trying to highlight that. I think we need to embrace everybody in the harbour so that we can get a consistent theme.
Okay, thank you. Other questions of clarity for either John or Patrick? Well, seeing none then. Okay, well, thank you both for coming here tonight. And I was remiss after the first delegation. I see the action recommended is now following, so I'm going to call on Councillor Burkett to address the presentation by Phoenix Genesis. And I'll go back.
Oh.
And I'll go back.
Okay, so the action recommended that the information be received by council for information purposes.
Okay, seconder, Councillor Rowden. Discussion. All in favor? Carried. Now I'm going to go back. I should have, Councillor McCarthy, I should have done the action recommended since it immediately followed the presentation. I'll refer back to you now.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the recommendation or the motion will be to refer the request to the Protection Services Coordinator meeting with a report to come to Council Monday, June 19th.
Seconder, Councillor Seguin. Discussion. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, at this time we have a delegation by Kevin Burt, Abbott Boulevard Boulevard resident, regarding a sidewalk construction project.
Welcome back, Kevin.
Good evening, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, Councillors. This was a last-minute addition. It was a misunderstanding. I didn't realize we could speak at the regular council meeting, so I spent a little bit of time this afternoon trying to prepare for this. First of all, I'd like to thank supporters, my neighbors on Abbott Boulevard. Could you please stand up? Thank you. There's a number of other neighbors that were not able to make it. Greg Hodge is my next-door neighbor. He was going to speak last week. He has family and work commitments. A number of the neighbors, I believe, have been contacting various councillors on this issue. I'd like to thank all of them. I prepared a two-page idea. It's not really my idea. I put it together, I wrote it, but I talked to a number of people in the neighborhood and to come up with the different points that I made in it. The crossing guard that is now stationed at King Street at the north end of Abbott Boulevard, she has provided some useful information on the parking situation. I've talked to a number of my neighbors, one of them that lives at the north end of Abbott and has been trying to get the bylaw enforced because there's no parking on either side of Abbott during school hours. With my idea in the two-page report, you might be able to have parking on one side, so it would accommodate parents picking up and dropping off students at in the morning and afternoon when school exits. So there would be no parking on the other side because I'm recommending that we have a path installed there. In the official plan for Coburg, the 2010 version, I don't believe it's approved, but it's very close to being approved. There is a multi-use path, a bicycle pedestrian path planned, and I'm kind of surprised at the location. It goes south from King Street on the east side of the high school, so it would be behind the properties on the west side of Abbott, and it would connect with a path that goes from Abbott Boulevard to Donegan Park. I'm recommending that instead of building it there, build it on Abbott Boulevard, one side or the other, maybe the east side, and that way it will still connect into Donegan Park. It will provide a walkway, pathway, bicycle way for everybody to use. You know, much like the paths in Victoria Park now. I see cyclists, I see pedestrians, people in e-bikes and pushing strollers, using them and sharing it. And it seems to work in Victoria Park. It should work on Abbott Boulevard. I'd like to talk a little bit about safety. Safety, of course, is a very important topic. Most of us, hopefully all of us, when we get into our vehicles, one of the first things we do is put on our seatbelts. Race car drivers, they use seatbelts too. If you've ever watched any race car, if you've ever watched any races and you've seen some of the crashes, it's amazing what they can go through and still walk away. They use a 5-point system and a helmet. If we did that in our own personal vehicles, we would be much safer. But we don't because it's a compromise between cost, convenience, and safety. And we've decided that the 3-point seatbelts that we use are safe enough. Not always true, but unfortunately. But that's what we as a society have accepted. So we have to have the proper balance between safety and costs and convenience. A sidewalk may be safer for some groups of people, but it's not the answer for everybody. There's a bylaw in Coburg for bicycles, and I would like to read one section of it, Section 3. It's Bylaw 012-2016. No person shall operate, ride, and propel a skateboard, inline skates, roller skates, e-bike, bicycle, motorized scooter, Segway, hoverboard, or similar device on any Town of Coburg sidewalk. All of these people using all of these devices would be excluded from the sidewalk. There's a $65 fine. So if I'm with my children, and my youngest daughter is 6, she's been riding her bicycle for a couple of years now, and we have gone from Abbott to the library downtown. Sometimes she was on the sidewalks, and according to this bylaw, she shouldn't be. There is a $65 fine. I took the risk. I'd rather pay the fine than have her injured. If there's a lane designated for bicycles, she can ride in that fairly safely. But when you have a parked car, she's so short on her little bicycle, those little wheels, the drivers wouldn't have a chance to see her. She can't see around the car. So I don't think that's a safe situation. When I take them to school, they would ride on the sidewalk on Cottesmore. There is a sidewalk on both sides of Cottesmore. I would ride my bicycle on Cottesmore itself. There's other examples of safety that, for example, a principal, I believe it was in Mississauga, banned soccer balls and basketballs from the schoolyard, and most other kinds of balls. The reason being for safety. Somebody got hit in the head. And sure, it would be safer for kids, but there was a lot of people who were opposed to this, and they reintroduced the sports into the school. So it was a very short-lived ban. So we have to make the proper compromises. I think that a sidewalk is going a little bit too far on Abbott based on the amount of traffic, the amount of use that it gets. There have been some studies as to how much traffic there is, but it was only at one time of the day. It was a very limited study. What we need is to have a proper study where you have a traffic counter and set it up for a week, a month, at different parts of Abbott. Right at the north end, where it gets the most traffic, closer to the south end. Check the traffic on Lakeshore. What is the metrics that you use to decide on where to build the sidewalks? Shouldn't it be on the busiest streets? If you really need to build a sidewalk this year, you can maybe on the west end of Lakeshore would be a good place, on the south of Donegan Park. I drove by there the other day, and there were cars parked all lined up because there was some sporting event going on. And on the north side of Lakeshore, it was full of cars. There was even a couple of trucks parked over the curb on the grass on the south side, which I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to park there, but there was some. So there are alternatives to building sidewalk on Abbott. So I'd ask you to delay the decision to build a sidewalk this year. You have options. You can, if you need to build a sidewalk, there's other places to do it. We can have a discussion. We can come up with the best options. In a fairly short period of time, I've talked to a number of different people, the crossing guard that I mentioned, various neighbors, and found out quite a bit of information. I've done a little bit of research on the internet. You have a good source of information, the Town of Coburg website, with the official plan and the bylaws and other information on there. And I think I've come up with an idea that it's a start, at least. You can take that and build on it, come up with a better solution than building a sidewalk.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. I'm going to open up to members of council who may have some questions of clarity for you. Council members, Council McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I realize this is for clarification, but it's also the opportunity to say thank you for all of the efforts that the neighborhood has made, and I've learned some information too that I wasn't aware of, and for me this is just a great example of civic mindedness, which we count on in the community when we're presented with an issue that is heartfelt. So thank you to the neighborhood, and stay tuned for the debate.
Other members of council? Seeing none, again, thank you, Kevin, and thank you for taking an interest in what's going on in the community, and the time you put into it is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Rodden? delegation action.
Yes, Your Worship. The action recommended that the information be received by council for information purposes from Kevin Bird.
Seconder, Councillor Burkett. Discussion? All in favor? And this is on the agenda later in the meeting for discussion.
Your Worship, under reports for General Government Services, we have the Committee of the Whole meeting notes.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
The action recommended the council receive the notes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on May 29, 2017 for information purposes.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Burkett. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we have a memo from the Chief Administrative Officer dated May 29, 2017 regarding the 2017 Town of Coburg Quarterly Finance Report, and that item was pulled from the meeting to be referred to a future meeting. We now have a memo from the Bylaw Enforcement Policy Coordinator regarding a transfer of property located at 388 John Street, Coburg, non-covert 12-foot lane parcel.
Deputy Mayor Henderson.
The action recommended that council direct staff to prepare a bylaw authorizing the transfer of a 12-foot parcel of land located on the property known as 388 John Street, Coburg, to the property owner or owners in order to clear up a conflict of ownership.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Darling. Discussion on this one? Deputy Mayor Henderson, would like to make a comment?
Yes, Your Worship, if I can. This is a technical. We'll have many of these, I'm sure, in the future coming to council. This is based on title and information that has not been sorted out over a 40 or 150-year period. So it's a technical to abide by our own bylaws. So that's the best way I can explain this one.
Okay. Any other discussion on it? Councillor Darling?
Yes, if I may refer to Mr. McGlashan on this. It says the property owners. I noticed the laneway in the drawing does or had run behind several houses along University Avenue and the one on John Street. Will we be clearing up all of those, or do we got to wait till each one of those come to us in the form of a bylaw?
Go ahead, Mr. McGlashan.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. I'm not familiar with this file, but I would assume that is correct, that the ownership of the parcel was called into question with respect to the land title system, and they had an anomaly on title. If the others have the same thing, yes, they would have to come to council for it.
Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, under Parks and Recreation Services, we have a memo from the Director of Recreation and Culture regarding an update on the establishment of the Town of Coburg Recreation and Culture Division.
Okay. Councillor Darling?
Yes, I'm going to direct this to Mr. Hustwick to present, if he would.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Hustler.
I appreciate the opportunity to present this memo to council. It's been about 14 months since the division was created, so I thought this was an appropriate time to bring a fulsome report to council to outline what we've achieved in the first year and the direction that we're moving in. So it's an opportunity to keep council well informed, but also to be able to talk about the progress and successes that we've been able to achieve together in terms of the strategic plan that council has put into place. I think everyone can agree that managing a complex organization is challenging at the best of times, but leading a transformation project is certainly extremely difficult, and it's important in order to be successful in those types of change processes to have a solid plan in place and a proper approach. So I've tried to outline within the memo that approach that we're using and the leadership framework that is guiding this process. So within the report, I've outlined that framework that has the 4 critical success factors. The first one being strategy, people and organization, programs and processes, and information technology. This is a lengthy memo. I want to respect Council's time, so I'm going to try to walk through it very, very quickly and just touch on the high points for the spectators, most importantly. Maybe I was trying to make it even shorter. So the first phase really took up most of last year, beginning in April and going through to the end of the calendar year. That's where we did the initial restructuring, where we moved departments from other divisions into the new division. But we also spent a lot of time last summer meeting with all of the staff across the new division in strategic planning sessions. And we had a lot of really, I think, powerful discussions in terms of what the mandate and mission of this division should be. And we've included a summary in the document of the strategy that is going to guide us moving forward. But we also did an organizational assessment looking at the strengths and as well as the many achievements that we've been able to rack up over that first year. And I've listed just sort of the highlights of a much longer list. And I think what's really important is to identify and to highlight that staff throughout the division are highly dedicated, hardworking, take tremendous pride in the work and in the municipality, and in many cases very long service commitments, and I think that's really very special and is a really solid foundation to build on. However, there are, like any organization, gaps that we've identified, and I'm just going to touch on sort of the most important ones. And those really relate to leadership and management capacity in order to be able to deliver on our strategic objectives. We have new commitments around culture and cultural planning. We do an enormous number of events throughout the community events, special tourism, sport tourism events at the CCC, and many, many events at the concert hall. So being able to better coordinate those activities as a cohesive unit is really important. And recreation planning. We need to be able to take the recreation strategy and implementation guide that was presented to Council and approved last year. We need additional leadership and ability to really drive that home. So phase 2 that we're really in now, that this report is really focusing on, is how do we now move from the strategy component and build the people in the organization. And so the direction that we're moving in is to create a new community services department, and that will address these gaps by really focusing on the cultural services and the cultural master plan that Council would like us to launch next year. The recreation strategy, as I mentioned, and being able to really pull the events team together and be able not just to coordinate but be able to plan. And there's a lot of activities related to that in terms of municipal support and grants and how the municipality really plays important roles in all of those activities. And that also leaves facilities management to focus on the more technical sides of running the buildings, but also enhance food and beverage services. We've enhanced capabilities at the CCC this year. We've also taken over responsibilities for food and beverage at Legion Fields, and so that area is really being asked to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our customers and broaden selection and also generate additional revenue to help make our facilities much more financially self-sustaining. So then we get into phases 3 and 4, which are already ongoing, and they will continue to unfold. related to building the programs and processes around these structures, and building the IT system to support all of that and to be able to deliver services to the public in the most effective manner. So that is a very quick overview of a lengthy report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hustwick. I just wanted to elaborate. There was some questions in regard to funding, and we had $45,000 in the budget this year for a cultural position, and that was not a line item that was extended into 2018, 2019, but the total for that position was in with the totals for the budget amount for those years. I just wanted to clarify that. And you can correct me if you have something to add to that or if I'm mistaken.
No, just to add to that, Councillor Darling, there is $45,000 in the budget for 2017, which would cover the new manager's position for half of this year. We're probably going to potentially spend less than that because it's probably going to take a couple months before we get the position in. So the intention was half of a year's salary is already included in the budget, and full year's salary is included in the out years.
Okay. Would you like to put a motion on the floor, Councillor Darling? Then we can open it up for any questions or discussion.
Okay. The action recommended here that council receive the report for information purposes.
Seconder, Councillor Rowden. Okay. And I'm now going to open it up for any comments or discussion from members of council. We've all had a number of days to review this, the org chart and the rationale behind it. So, seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Henderson.
Through either Councillor Darling, yourself, Director Hustwick, I know we have a posting out for Lara Scott. Can you just update council where we might be on that particular position?
Your Worship, to the Deputy Mayor, the job posting closed last week, and the applications are now being reviewed and shortlisted.
Okay. And that position is still shown on the org chart anyway. So, any other questions? Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Director Hustwick. So the return on the investment piece of this plan, will there be some point, because I know it's complicated when you're in transition with reorganizing a department, creating new elements, but of course the CCC is a facility that engenders intense interest from the community, and this information of course was worked on since you've come here, and so it's out in the public now. But let me get to the point. At some point, are we able to look at a business plan that speaks to the revenue generation? Perhaps not this year, but I know that's one of the goals, is that it is an expensive entity to run, the department, let alone the CCC, and that is one of the goals. And at some point, will we understand where you alluded to food, but there's other things, fees and various things that might actually be measurable? Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Hustwick.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Councillor McCarthy, absolutely. I mean, this is all part of the broader strategy. The interim utilization report that I brought forward to Council, I think last summer, started that process of focusing on our facilities, particularly the CCC, and the recommendations to enhance food and beverage there was specifically to drive, well, it was really two purposes. One, to meet the needs and enhance customer service of users of the facility, but also to increase revenue. We are looking at revenue in a number of different areas. Obviously, the marina and the campground are important components. The waterfront planning is certainly also looking at service provision at the waterfront as well as revenue generation. There's a number of ideas that we've been discussing, both with council members and Councillor Darling in particular in terms of Parks and Rec, that are all moving in the direction of enhancing revenue. Fees we are looking at. But part of this new department will include the concert hall, and the concert hall we think is a tremendous asset for this community, and what are the opportunities for enhancing revenue through that facility while also supporting culture and the arts in the community. So it's hard to answer that without spending about half an hour, but it is certainly important aspects that are integrated in this broader strategy. And I think in terms of return on investment, having a new department that's able to focus on sort of these three key areas will, I think, allow us to really drive customer service as well as revenue. And it's difficult for us to do that in the current structure. The current structure has far too many direct reports of existing management, and the capacity to broaden that, especially as we start to delve into cultural planning, makes it really difficult. And you know, even the events component is, I think, again, there's streamlined opportunities by working as a team rather than having sort of silos across departments. So those types of performance measures are certainly sort of the next step, and how do we measure our success? And I'll continue to come back to council and report on those.
Councillor Seguin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Director Huswick. We've met several times to discuss this, and as Coordinator of Community Services, I really applaud your vision for bringing culture and the arts into the mix, because the creative economy is certainly a revenue generator for a lot of communities like Coburg. I do have one question. Early on, and right after the budget was accepted by Council, this position was a cultural coordinator. It has now evolved into a community services manager. And with the cultural plan not really taking effect until 2018, will this be 2017, or will it evolve so that it is part of the 2018 budget?
Go ahead, Mr. Hustler.
Your Worship, to Councillor Seguin, everything takes a little bit of time to transition, so it's important that we begin this recruitment process. That's going to take a couple months, and then once we get the position into place, then it's going to take time to transition the different units over into this department. In terms of cultural planning specifically, the intention would be to work with you and community members and have the RFP drafted this year, potentially even issued this year, subject to budget approval for implementation in 2018, so that we're kicking off after the budget on a fast track rather than sort of waiting until well into next year to start. So that would give us the ability to potentially have the cultural master plan done before the end of 2018. But I think building this team now is absolutely critical to being able to reach those types of goals next year.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Worship. And to Councillor Seguin, part of the discussion we had many years ago, perhaps, leading to the cultural piece, we knew if we had to have this particular individual in place to go forward, part of the consideration was to make sure that person is part and parcel of the cultural master planning development, rather than bring in a plan and then after you develop a plan, you try and find the person. We thought it was certainly foresight to try and have that person be part of the process along with yourself as councillor and members of council. So that was a large part of our thinking, starting back in our first, well, I shouldn't say your first term, but my first term of council, knowing that one day we would start to address the cultural piece of Coburg.
Okay, Councillor Seguin again.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I totally appreciate that. It's a transparency issue for me. I think it was positioned as a cultural coordinator, and now it has become a community services manager. The price points are a lot higher, and I think the council and the community should have been advised at the time of the budget that it indeed was that. I totally agree that a manager should be in place. But I also believe that there should be a business plan for that manager to make the CCC more efficient. And I really do think that council needs to be more transparent as it moves forward, so that positions that come forward are indeed the positions that we have budgeted for. Thank you.
Well, so my take on it is that a rose by any other name is still a rose, and I think it really doesn't matter what the title is. It's the function that we're concerned with, and I think that's what Mr. Hustwick is trying to get across. And I think one of the most important pages in his report, if you take a look at page 4, where he outlines the critical success factors, the achievements, and the gaps, that tells you exactly what's going to take place, regardless of who's doing it. Those are the gaps that have to be filled, and I don't care what you call that person. They're going to be responsible for working on closing those gaps. So that's my position. And I don't think that we ever started out with any intention not to be transparent or to deceive anyone. It's just a natural evolution that has taken place over time, and as we've gone through the process. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Then I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, under Public Works Services, we have a memo from the Director of Public Works regarding requests from the Coburg Public Library for free transit for the 2017 TD Summer Reading Program.
Councillor Rowden.
Thank you, Worship, and a little bit of the background information on it, that the library is hosting a TD Summer Reading Club program again this year. An important part of the Reading Club program is the Ride to Read component, whereas children aged 4 to 13 can ride to the Coburg Public Transit bus for free, and to get there from there all summer long. So it's a Ride to Read transit service that has been provided in the past, and staff reports there has been no issues on any concerns. So again, the motion is to receive for information.
Okay, Seconder. Councillor Darling, discussion? Councillor Darling?
Yes, I think this is a great program, and I see by the memo here that last year we had 36 children registered, but there's no statistics on how many took the trip, whatnot. I wonder if it would be at all possible for the library to keep track of how much this is used, and if there's a way to promote it even more so that we can have more children going and learning to read, so we know that we're having some success with the program.
Absolutely, I agree. It's been ongoing for several years, and that's why they want to continue it. So maybe we could ask Councillor Seguin to bring back some from her next library board meeting. She could bring back some information to us. Yes, Councillor Seguin.
I'll do even better than that. I'm going to ride on the bus with some of these kids and talk to them about the program, and we brought it up at the last board meeting.
Wonderful. Any other discussion? All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, at this time under Planning and Development Services, we have a memo from the Planner One Development regarding a notice of complete application site plan approval for 16 Park Street in Coburg.
Okay, Councillor Burkett.
The action recommended that Council receive the site plan application for information purposes and refer the matter to the Planning Department for a report. And at this point, I would ask Director McGlashan to speak to this just a little bit.
Okay, so there's not a lot of detail because we're just getting notice there is an application. But go ahead, Mr. McGlashan, because I was a little confused when I read it. Wasn't quite sure if they're adding new units or if they're going to replace the number of units 4 with 6. So go ahead.
Actually, Your Worship, you're correct in both counts. The proposal is to replace the existing 4-plex residential building with 6 units, and also expand the building as well. Back in 2016, the owner did receive a minor variance to expand the legal nonconforming use, since it is in a district commercial zone. And so this application has now been filed with the municipality, and it is currently under review by the development review team.
And these are rental units.
As far as I'm aware, yes, Your Worship, they are rental units.
Good. That's good. That's good news, because we all know how short we are of rental properties. Deputy Mayor Henderson, you're next.
Thank you. Either to Councillor Burkett or Director McGlashan. At one point, I believe there was consideration for demolition on this property. So could you just provide a bit of clarity on that point for me?
Yes, Your Worship. Along with the proposed expansion, there was a heritage permit issued to allow for the demolition of that structure as a result of a detailed engineering report on the structural integrity of the building, which was not very good at all.
Councillor Darling, did you have a question or comment?
I did, but that was my exact question. Was the building going to be demolished? Thank you.
Any other discussion? Oh, did we not get a seconder? I'm sorry. Seconder for that, Councillor Rowden. All in favor of the motion? It's carried.
Your Worship, we have a memo from the Planner 1 Development regarding a notice of complete application site plan approval for 116 Veronica Street in Coburg.
Okay, Councillor Burkett again.
The action recommended that Council receive the site plan application for information purposes and refer the matter to Planning Department for a report.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Darling, any discussion on this one? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we now have motions, the first being under Economic Development Services.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rowden. Whereas the Committee of the Whole considered a memo from the Chief Administration Officer regarding the Venture 13 Economic Development Hub. Now therefore be it resolved that Council accept the business case for the development of Venture 13 dated May 10, 2017 for information purposes and approve proceeding with work to establish Venture 13 to the end of Stage 2 of the work plan, and further that Council approve the contribution of $250,000 to be funded from the Whole reserves for the purpose of outfitting of the building, and further that Council approve sole sourcing of the renovation and alteration plan and tender development for the project to Piccini Architects.
Okay. It's moved and seconded. Any questions from members of council or comments? Because this is it's a very important project moving forward. It's going to be what I call a game changer for the town of Coburg by putting all of our resources in one area and having Northumberland and CFDC as part of our partners. That's an exceptional advantage we're going to have because they do have an accelerator program. They've got a history of success in startup businesses and accelerating their businesses. So they, along with the Northumberland Manufacturing Association, and even though the Northumberland Business Advisory Center isn't going to be located there, they will be part of the resources that we're using along with the Northumberland Manufacturing Association. So it's a great complement for our own economic development that have been very instrumental in bringing new business into the town of Coburg, and more so for our business retention program and the manufacturing sector that they're working with, and we'll be able to take them into the next level of next generation, I should say, of manufacturing, because it's smart manufacturing that's going to survive. Councillor Rowden.
Yes, Your Worship, and just to highlight that, when I was at the conference in Niagara this spring, and there is talk of Eastern Ontario being not so well included in the training issues at Walkerton. So they're trying to move east this further, and I know our CEO at Lakefront Utilities is trying to get that in Coburg. So it'll be a win-win situation if we have that training process here, so that anything east of Toronto can come here to take their training for the water certification.
Well, that's only one aspect of what we're trying to do. You know, we're trying to bring meaningful post-secondary programs to the town of Coburg. And so I have had conversations with Durham and also Sir Sanford Fleming College. The deputy mayor was with me when the president of Sir Sanford came down and met with us in our office. And I did tell them that there is a great need for water operators, wastewater operators, and so there's a great opportunity here in the town of Coburg. We have a full-service tertiary plant, and we're quite willing to set it up as a center of excellence, where they can bring their people down and get hands-on experience, take them up to the Venture Center, and then give them the classroom exposure as well. So you're exactly right. We know there's an extreme shortage of water operators and wastewater operators. So anytime we're looking for a replacement, basically all we're doing is cannibalizing from another community. So we've got to do something to fill that gap as well. Any other comments? All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, we have motions under General Government Services.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rowden. Whereas the Committee of the Whole considered a memo from the Treasurer, Director of Corporate Services regarding the Waterworks 2016 financial statement. Now therefore be it resolved that Council approve the financial statements for the Waterworks of the Town of Coburg for the year ended December 31st, 2016.
Okay, and it was presented to us last week. Adam Giddings was here representing Lakefront Utilities. Personally, I've been through the presentation several times as chair of HOLCO, as a Louis board member, and so on. And I think it certainly covers all aspects of the water operation. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Deputy Mayor Henderson again.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rowden. Whereas the Committee of the Whole considered a memo from the Treasurer, Director of Corporate Services regarding the cancellation, reduction, or refund of taxes, first report for 2017. Now therefore be it resolved that Council approve the cancellation, reduction, or refund of property taxes in the amount of $2,092,137.78. Town of Coburg, $811,407.66. County of Northumberland, $435,053.57. Education, $845,703.63. The DBIA, $27.08. And Your Worship, if I could ask Mr. Davey just to make a similar comment to what he did last week in case it was missed by anybody, because I think it sets the stage what might be facing us in the future. So, Mr. Davey, if I could ask you to do that.
Absolutely, Deputy Mayor. It's a big number, and I do believe it deserves some explanation.
Yes, Your Worship, and through you to the Deputy Mayor. This is the first report that basically takes us up to the end of May. It includes at least two of the big major properties that we talked about back during budget, where we were going to have significant tax write-offs that go back several years. This is a result of Assessment Review Board hearings that take a long time to go through their system, and we're finally settled in early in this year, right around budget time. So we knew that we were facing some significant write-offs. We increased our budget for write-offs drastically. We've now, with this report, we've actually exceeded that amount already. We had budgeted $800,000, so we've slightly exceeded that. As we mentioned last week, we will continue to monitor this number as we move through the next quarter. As it increases, we may have to come back with additional recommendations on where to fund the amount over budget. The other side of this equation, as I often refer to, is the supplementary and omitted taxes that we pick up during the year on new properties that come on the roll. And to date, we've had about $176,000, I believe, out of $375,000 that we budgeted have already come on the roll, just based on the first report, which was the 1st of May. So we'll be getting those sup-omit assessments on a monthly basis throughout 2017. And as I indicated, we'll continue to monitor this and may have to come back with recommendations on how to deal with the over-budget amount of write-offs.
And I think it bodes well for us. Mr. McGlashkin can talk to this better than I can, but I do believe the value of construction in 2017 year to date is more than double what it was at this point last year. Is that correct? Yeah. So our supplementaries will continue to come back to us. Yeah. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we have a motion under Parks and Recreation Services.
Okay. Councillor Darling.
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Henderson. And I'm going to add to this motion in the second part. Whereas the Committee of the Whole considered a memo from the Manager of Parks regarding a municipal grant application from the Coburg Minor Softball Association seeking funds for the 2017 Canadian U16 Boys Fast Pitch Championships Tournament to be held in the town of Coburg. Now therefore be it resolved that Council approve the request for support from Coburg Legion Minor Softball Organization, known as CLIMSO, for hosting the 2017 Canadian U16 Boys Fast Pitch Championship and provide up to $4,000 in facility fee reductions as a financial guarantee if the event experiences an operating deficit, and further that the sponsor package for the championship be included. And the added part is further that the town also provide a $4,000 loan for seed funding to be repaid within 60 days of the conclusion of the tournament, subject to the provision of a promissory note, and further that the town provide $2,000 towards marketing expenses. And the reasoning for this here addition, since we passed it at COW last week, I was in contact with the CLIMSO representatives, and they pointed out that the revenues from this tournament come in at the time of the tournament through gate receipts and whatnot, which is a big part of their funding, and sponsorship. And due to the fact that Coburg has had some major events in the town last week, the sponsorship is not quite what they had anticipated. So they put a revised budget in, being a little more, I guess, a little more subtle into what they thought their revenues would be. And they really need this money up front. Now, as it is a fundraising event, if they do well, it'll break even, maybe make some money. If the weather's good and they get the full 16 teams coming out, they may make a good profit. So I think a loan would really help them out. And they are aware of this and have provided the promise to repay that. And with the marketing, a big part of the tournament is that the marketing gets out. And again, giving them some assistance on that. And I know we've provided assistance for the other national events. And this is a national event. It doesn't quite draw what the TSN coverage that we got for curling and the RBC. But with this many teams coming in, with some numbers punched into the by them for the Ontario program, which tells you what your economic spin-off, they're predicting in the neighborhood of $340,000 economic spin-off. So I think it would be in our best interests, even though it's not huge revenue for the municipality as itself that we did get from the big tournaments, it still is a huge spin-off in the economic end of things. So I'm asking council's support with the added amendment to the motion.
Well, I certainly agree with you, Councillor Darling, that these programs need some sort of seed funding to get started, because the revenue comes after the fact. And if you talk to the fastball aficionados around Southern Ontario, they'll tell you how lucky we are to have Legion Fields. It's a great facility. Legion Fields is to the fastball players what the CCC is to pickleball players, volleyball players, hockey players, and so on. So and it's right in close proximity to the CCC. And with us, when you're dealing with, excuse me, under 16, it's not just the players that you're dealing with, but you're bringing in the parents and grandparents. So I think that there's going to be a tremendous draw out of this tournament. And once again, the service sector in the town of Coburg is going to be very grateful for it. Councillor Rowden.
Yes, Your Worship, and I'll be supporting this motion, but I did speak to a gentleman today that not only won he was in the World Championships of fastball, and he was also in the Canadian Championship and the Ontario Championship, plus the local ones. And his anticipation is we're going to have a huge crowd in the town of Coburg, because they're getting the word out there to the western provinces that they beat a few times, and they want to come back to Coburg for revenge.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. He's a Hamilton Township resident.
If I may correct you, Your Worship, he now lives on Ewing Street.
Wow.
If we're talking about E.T. Cat.
Well, I'm glad to have him in town. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? And it's carried.
Your Worship, we have 3 motions under Public Works Services.
Okay, Councillor Rowden.
Yes, Your Worship, and my first one tonight in motions is whereas the Committee of the Whole is, it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Darling, whereas the Committee of the Whole considered a memo from the Director of Public Works regarding construction on the new sidewalk on the east side of Abbott Boulevard, Coburg. Now therefore be it resolved that Council authorize the construction of a new sidewalk on the east side of Abbott Boulevard, Coburg, in the amount of $100,000 to be funded from the approved 2017 Public Works capital budget. And Your Worship, I believe the last 5 years we've been adding sidewalks to different streets in town, and I checked with a lot of people in the last couple of weeks in those areas that we've done, like Queen Street and William Street and different ones, and it's been very positive that they appreciate the fact that there's a sidewalk in their front door. So I really don't know why all the confusion is down at Abbott Boulevard. I think it will increase the streetscape there and make it not only safer for kids to walk on, but safer for the accessibility, especially.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this? Councillor McCarthy, you're first.
Thank you, Your Worship. What a difference a week makes in terms of getting more information and understanding more in depth. An initiative that has had tremendous input by the community. I have several points to make, but I will say now that I do not support the motion as it stands for a number of reasons, which I will state. I did go back to our capital budget, and sure enough, on page 30, there it is, that the program of $100,000, and I'll read from the budget. This program addressed remaining sections of arterial and collector streets which do not have sidewalks on both sides of the street as recommended in the official plan, and Abbott was put there. And I recognize what the Deputy Mayor said last week, that if it's not a collector, but it's deemed important to have a sidewalk because sidewalks are the safe mode of transportation for pedestrians, then it should have at least one side. Well, lo and behold, the official plan information came up, and it's Schedule E, and I went and had a look at it. And it was very interesting. It was pointed out that there are existing and planned bicycle paths in the vicinity of these neighborhoods. I was surprised. I didn't know it was there. And sure enough, if you go down Abbott Street and stop at the bus stop, and you just walk about 2 feet south, there's this little pathway. The other one I didn't get to, which is on the east side of Donegan Park and lines up with the high school, exists as well. So that hasn't been explored. But the main point I want to make about Abbott is that it is neither arterial nor a collector road, according to Schedule E of the official plan. It is a transit route. So that got me thinking, how do we make a decision, or how does staff make a decision on what sidewalk is going to be done within a year? And honestly, when you look at Lakeshore, the Lakeshore, which is a collector, does not have any sidewalks on either side. That's very interesting. But here's where I do not want to cherry pick as a counselor which one to do. That's not my task. My task is to say, what is the criterion for choosing the priority of which roads in the town of Coburg get a sidewalk? And it relates to official plan, it relates to other policies, safety, etc. The other thing I did, I went back to the news release, April 10th, for addressing the issue of increasing safety in the King Abbott corridor. We were presented with information of a day counting cars, and I'd have to say, well-intended, but I have a graduate thesis. I did statistical design and analysis, and one day's accounting of traffic is not influencing me. But hey, part of addressing the issue of Abbott and King is KPR's doing a traffic study. I want to see that information. I want to wait for that information. And so I do believe that I won't support this motion, and I'm hoping and I'm aware that that this does not receive approval. There's a standby motion, but at least I think what I would encourage is council receive a report for what remains to be done with respect to the official plan, arterial and collector, and other roads, and rank them and then put them into the budget. Then I, as a councillor, can base the decision on whether to support the budget item based on criteria. And the final point I want to make is I've been in the situation where a municipality is making a decision and you go, whoa. And so here's what happens with the optics. People think, oh, you're bending to pressure from a NIMBY attitude, meaning we don't want a sidewalk, it'll ruin the look of our property. But here's what happens. When you're confronted with a decision that's going to really affect your property, you start digging. And the digging leads you to ask questions. And that's what I admire about the group, is that they dug deeper than NIMBY. They started to say, well, hold on now. And that got me reviewing it as well. So for me, that's a good thing about having a week between a committee of a whole and council to dig deeper and investigate. I cannot support the idea that these homes should not receive a sidewalk because it will affect what they look like. For me, I have to make a decision on policy, and I don't have that information. And I'd like to wait for the traffic study and a ranking of sidewalks. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion? Councillor Burkett?
So first off, I'm in support of putting a sidewalk on the street, obviously, but I think there are some other things that we need to do first before we do that. I've just got the updated official plan in front of me here, the section that Deputy Mayor Henderson kind of spoke to last week from the 2002, but I actually have the 2010 because as of May 18th, our official plan was approved. So I'm just going to, it does say provisions shall be made for sidewalks on both sides of all arterial and collector roads and on one side of all local streets at the minimum, the exemption, and so on. But going down further within there, there's a section with state, and it's under one of the sections where it says, D, ensure that all rights and privacy of adjacent property owners are factored into the design process for the pedestrian and cycling routes. So I think that kind of states that we need a little more of a detailed design in respects to what it's going to look like, what it's going to affect, and ultimately where are we going with, for example, I know the lakeshore has been brought up. I know would be some extensive work to do that, but I think we just got to give the people the vision of where we're going and where we are today. And I just wanted to bring those 2 points up for council's consideration. So I will not be supporting the current motion, but I will support an alternative if somebody puts that on the floor.
Well, I would just like to make a comment too, because we've had a lot of input from the citizens of Abbott Boulevard, and when it comes to our infrastructure, Councillor McCarthy has made reference to Lakeshore. The presenter made reference to Lakeshore. At no time have we ever done a study that indicates that we need to put a sidewalk on Lakeshore. All of our infrastructure should be developed from the center out, not from the perimeter in. And that's why I think that we have to develop a sidewalk on Abbott Boulevard, extend it down to Lakeshore, then we can connect it to a sidewalk on Lakeshore because then you'll have a sidewalk that goes somewhere, not a sidewalk that goes nowhere. I can't support the idea of a combined cycle lane and pedestrian lane, because it would be entirely contradictory to everything we have done to the cycling community in this town. We have created cycling paths for them, and now we're going to try and mix pedestrians and cyclists all in the same area. Well, what you're going to find is you would find that people be confused. They now think that when they come to the top of King Street, they can walk in the cycling route on the road because they're doing it on Abbott. And now we've created a situation where cyclists who are coming up, and if there's pedestrians there, they now have to veer out and around the pedestrians and get out of the safety cycling lane that they have. So I think, for all of these reasons, I think that we're taking the right approach here. We're developing from the center to the to the perimeter, and then we will connect everything together, and then you'll have something that works. So that's my position, and I will be supporting the motion. Councillor Burkett, or Councillor or Deputy Mayor Henderson, you were next.
Thank you, Worship. I must admit, what I read, and I want to be clear here, what I read last week on my behalf, because I do believe in systems and policy and process, was from 202. And during the week, too, I'd like to thank in particular Councillor Burkett and also the director for updating myself and the rest of council on the changes in the new town official plan. And I won't repeat them because Councillor Burkett read them to you, but it does say that citizens should have some input into what it may look like ultimately, and really what's it look like. And I am also leaning towards Councillor McCarthy, because I'm also interested in what does that traffic study state, knowing that both schools were built. So I'm at the point where I'd like to take certainly a pause on this motion put forward and relook at the whole situation based on process and facts. And then that way I can ultimately make a better decision. And the reason I'm changing because of the language before me, because I believe if we've got a great official plan, I have to tell you that, it took 6 years to get it here. And I think it's time, if we have a great plan, we need to follow it. So at this point, I won't be supporting the original motion, but I will be interested in what is coming forward for debate on the floor based on what's before me tonight. And I think with those two parts, I'll have more information. With that being said, I know for all of us in this room, and I think I speak for all of us, and I know I'm a past administrator and principal of a school, the fear is what happens if we have an injury? What happens if someone gets hurt? Because ultimately what we're trying to do is protect the safety of anyone, whether that be a young child, right up to a senior, an animal. We know that's the heart of this matter because it ultimately goes to safety as well. Thank you.
Other comments? Councillor Rowden?
Yes, Your Worship, and thank you, Council, for your information. I'd just like to say that last week, I believe, Councillor McCartney brought forward some information from the Accessibility Committee that they were all for this project. I'd asked if we're going to go ahead with this motion and that we have a recorded vote.
Councillor McCarthy?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like the opportunity to respond to Councillor Rowden's point of view. What the Accessibility Committee approved was sidewalks, and they say it opens up their world. I think they would be just as interested that a sidewalk go in another area of town based on our policy and criterion. So I would, that's my point, is let's have a better way of evaluating which sidewalk gets done in a year. Thank you.
Councillor Darling.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This is a tough one. I think I have to support it because of the statement Deputy Mayor Henderson said, what if somebody gets hurt? Personally, I'd never forgive myself. But I do agree with Councillor McCarthy. I think the process could be much better, and we can learn from it and move forward in that direction. Mr. Burt referred to in his delegation to us that the metrics that we need to use, and I agree. But he said delay the sidewalk. So I'm asking, so in the future, are they prepared to support it? Because I'm confident that whether we do Lakeshore or another street or whatever, that the criteria is going to come back, the design of the sidewalk is going to come back, and it's going to say Abbott needs a sidewalk. So I'm very confident in that. And they asked about the direction of the sidewalk. So I had the pleasure of having Director Hustwick for dinner this evening. And on our way here, I pointed out to him while we drove down Queen Street, I said to the director, I said, here's a perfect example of a sidewalk that just went in 2 years ago. We did Donegan last year. This was 2 years ago. And I showed him how the sidewalk, there wasn't one there. It went down the street. There was a big maple tree. The sidewalk gently curved around the maple tree. You went a little farther down. There was two driveways that are brick, like a cobblestone type of brick. The brick was lifted out. The sidewalk was put through them. The brick was all replaced beautifully. Down a little farther was a small tree, which the Public Works knows is going to grow, and the roots are going to affect the sidewalk. So at that point, they put the interlocking brick there, so when the sidewalk does heave because of the roots, they can relay the brick, which doesn't damage the tree and doesn't damage the sidewalk. So our Public Works have been putting sidewalks in for a number of years, and they do a very good job at it. And like Councillor Rowden said, drive around the community and talk to these people. People are sometimes a little leery of change, but the benefits far outweigh the negatives down the road. And there was a talk of the neighbor has a big rock in their front yard. Well, if the rock is in the way of the sidewalk, it's because the rock is on town property. It can easily be picked up by a hoe and moved back 6 or 8 feet and put in that person's front lawn. The sidewalk can curve gradually around the fire hydrants and gradually around the trees. The interlocking brick can be put in where a tree is susceptible to damage to its roots. So other than, all I'm hearing right here now, other than maybe the perfect criteria wasn't in place in making our decision, and when we went back to the 2002 plan, Gumlow School wasn't proposed at that time to be built and add the traffic and student volume to that area. So I think in all things being considered, we're doing the right thing for the right reasons, and I'm prepared to take the backlash from the residents of that street for the betterment of the whole community. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Burkett.
And I'd just like to say, Councillor Darling makes some great points about the safety, and I understand your worships in regards to starting in and working your way out, and I'm not against that. I'm just looking at like I said, I support the sidewalk on Abbott, but I just think we got to make sure that maybe convey the plan to the residents so we can maybe get a little more support and ensure that, for example, the privacies and those things, like it is in the official plan, are all dealt with. And accessibility, yes, I totally agree that we need these things for accessibility purposes. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Okay, further comments before Councillor Seguin?
Thank you, Your Worship. An issue like this brings out the best in council, and it brings out the best in the community. I think everyone should have a voice. I think it's important to have the discussion. On this particular issue on Abbott Street, I will not be supporting the official, the motion in front of us. I think the discussion needs to be evolved, and I think we have to look at all the questions that were brought forward by not only council, but by the residents who live on that street. And I think we have to have a healthy discussion and look at what's the best. I think we're all in favor of safety. No one would ever argue against that. But we also have to look at the vision of what that street will look like and how it will be safe for everyone. And so I will not be supporting the motion on the table. I do have an ulterior motion that I will put forward if that motion is defeated.
Okay, further comments? Seeing none, then I'm going to call for the vote.
Your Worship, when a member present requests a recorded vote, all members present at the council or committee meeting must vote in alphabetical order, and the names of those voted yes and those who voted no against it shall be recorded in the minutes. The clerk shall state the tally of the vote, and the mayor shall announce the results. Mayor Brocanier?
Yes.
Councillor Burkett?
No.
Councillor Darling?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Henderson?
No.
Councillor McCarthy?
No.
Councillor Rowden?
Yes.
Councillor Seguin?
No.
Your Worship, we have 4 in support and 3 against.
The motion is defeated.
Sorry, 4 against and 3 in support. Sorry, all excited. Your Worship, I believe we have a follow-up motion from Councillor Seguin.
Thank you. The motion I would like to put forward is as follows. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Burkett. Whereas the Committee of the Whole considered a memo from the Director of Public Works regarding construction of a new sidewalk on the east side of Abbott Boulevard, Coburg, now therefore be resolved that Council defer the construction of a new sidewalk on the east side of Abbott Boulevard, Coburg, and direct staff to prepare drawings of what a sidewalk would look like when finished, and prepare an estimate to construct a sidewalk on the east side of Abbott Boulevard only from King Street to just north of the driveway of 204 Abbott Street to ease congestion during school hours, and prepare a report with criterion by which priority ranking is given to installation of new sidewalks.
You have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. Very, very puzzling to me because we've just turned down one motion saying we don't have enough information, and now we have a motion in front of us that has absolutely no justification for preparing a sidewalk on the east side of Abbott from King Street down to 204 Abbott only, and now we're going to construct a sidewalk on the south end of Donegan Park along Lakeshore Boulevard without any justification there either. It'll be a sidewalk that goes nowhere. So I have to admit, I'm not sure where council's going with this, but I'm puzzled. You know,
Sorry, Mayor,
one minute we're asking for information, the next minute we're making decisions on the fly.
That Lakeshore component was not included in the motion that I read. I excluded that.
Okay, further discussion. Councillor Darling.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, Your Worship. I mean, we just argued the fact that we didn't have the metrics in place, and our official plan says you should take into consideration the residents and everything, but we're willing to put the residents between King and 204. Well, all of a sudden they don't matter because we're getting a sidewalk partially. I find it very confusing. Either we want the metrics in place and we make a decision based on all the other criteria and we don't put the sidewalk there, or well, a little too late for the last one, but again, I'm very confused. Either you want the process in place or you don't.
And we're adding to the cost. Now we're asking for, for drawings that are going to add to the cost for the project. Deputy Mayor Henderson, I believe you want to say something.
Thank you, Worship. Just to Councillor Seguin, would you consider, because from my perspective, what I am interested in learning or hearing from, because my understanding of the KPR District School Board was to submit a traffic study, and my understanding that should be forthcoming. Perhaps Director McGlashan can help us on that one in terms of a timeline. And I was interested in the design and the criteria for a sidewalk from Public Works, because that's something I'm not personally clear on. They're important to me because, back to Councillor Darling, that would create the metrics. And then once I have the metrics, then I'm better able to make a decision whether it be Abbott Boulevard or any other sidewalk that's to be constructed in the town of Coburg. But at this point, I'm more interested in the metrics. That would be my position. So I leave that with you for consideration.
Go ahead, Councillor Seguin.
Thank you. I think you're right. I think let's make it easy to go back to study the traffic counts, go back to the metrics, and if I withdraw, to Councillor Darling's point, the the motion of the building the sidewalk. And you're right. I think we should look at all aspects of this. So let me reword the motion just to make sure that we're clear that we're not really putting anything in there until we've done a complete review and study of the criteria that we're looking for and the traffic studies. Is that okay? Okay. Deborah.
Thank you.
Councillor McCarthy.
Oh, sorry, Richard. I am interested as well in understanding where the sidewalks do not exist and how they are chosen. And I agree, you build from the center out. But in my neighborhood, I don't have any way of comparing it. And I don't want to say, oh, you should do this one before that one. I just want a ranking that's dealt with professionally and impartially based on the criteria. For example, there is no sidewalk, and it's heavily used by walkers on Spencer Street from Walton to Darcy. And there's lots of pedestrians. There's children walking to school as well, people going to CCC. So again, I'm not going to suggest where they have. If Abbott is at the top of the list, and again inside of the approved official plan, then I would support it. But I want to know that in the context of other non-existing sidewalks. And so I would want to hear the traffic study, and I would like a ranking listing based on criteria. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Burkett.
I would just maybe ask Councillor Sagan to maybe reword that as there was discussion after she had wrote that, and I seconded it earlier. So if she would maybe rewrite it with taking some of that out and looking back at the design before we make a decision on Abbott.
Okay, well, if you reword it, it'll have to be seconded again. Oh, I think you should reword it before he agrees to second it.
I'm just taking out, I'm not adding to. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Burkett. Whereas the Committee of the Whole considered a memo from the Director of Public Works regarding construction of a new sidewalk on the east side of Abbott Boulevard, Coburg. Now therefore be it resolved that Council defer the construction of a new sidewalk on the east side of Abbott Boulevard, Coburg, and direct staff to prepare drawings of what a sidewalk would look like when finished, and review traffic counts, and prepare a report with criterion on which priority ranking is given to the installation of new sidewalks.
Councillor Burkett, are you still seconding that?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay. Now further discussion. Councillor Darning, then Councillor Rowden.
I'm willing to support that. I'm just curious, when you say drawings, are you talking like engineered drawings where an engineer comes out and tests the soil and compaction and exact layout and measurements from curb to, I mean, could be talking a lot of dollars here just in drawings, and are we setting a precedent that every sidewalk in town, they say they've been putting sidewalks in, doing a great job for many years. So I just have a little concern that we're adding a lot of cost here and not quite sure exactly what we're asking for when we say drawings. Are we talking sketch of where the telephone poles and where the hydrants are and the gentle bends in the sidewalks? So more of a sketch drawing and not engineered drawings?
That's what I envision, a sketch of what the street will look like and how they will configure around the hydro poles that are there, the hydrants that are there, and work around that, not engineering drawings.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Rowden.
Your Worship, to my understanding, we don't need to have to defer this motion. This motion already been defeated, am I right? So this motion has been defeated. All we need is a motion forward that the Director of Public Works bring back another alternative to sidewalks within the region of the town and or what we can do on Abbott Boulevard. We don't need to follow up on a deferred motion. The motion's been defeated already. Okay?
The motion's been defeated. That's why there was another motion put on the floor.
Yes, I think Councillor Chiquin said we'd defer the motion. Well, the motion's already been defeated, so we don't need to defer this motion.
No,
if I'm correct.
She's just deferring the construction of a new sidewalk, not the motion.
Okay. Well, that's what this motion said, though, the construction of the motion.
Yeah. Okay. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
If I can, back to Councillor Seguin. I know you mentioned about traffic, but could you put some wording in there? Because the one I'm interested in seeing is really not asking the town to come up with a traffic study. I'm just interested in seeing the KPR that they've already been instructed to supply. I'm not asking for the town to go. If it's done well, it should take in the whole school catchment area.
So technically, Deputy Mayor Henderson, you're now adding an amendment. So would you put that forward as an amendment, just so we're in keeping with the with Robert's rules? So if you put the amendment forward, we can discuss the amendment and then have it added if it's passed.
Okay. Thank you, Worship. I'd like consideration for that phrasing, the KPR, District School Board.
Seconder for the amendment, Councillor Burkett. Councillor Rowden, do you want to talk to the
Yes, and I'm not too sure about this, but I think that maybe our Director of Public Works should comment on the fact that, or maybe the Director of Planning, how far that study was to be done with the KPR, because my understanding was King Street, Cottesmore, and Darcy Street. I don't remember Abbott Boulevard being part of that study with the KPR. Now, if the KPR is doing it, we should find that out. If they're not doing that part, we're not gaining a thing here tonight.
Okay, Mr. Thrasher, do you recall if Abbott Boulevard is part of the KPR study?
Your Worship, I do not recall Abbott Boulevard being mentioned in that study. They were to study the traffic on Cottesmore and King Street, and to look at three intersections: University and Darcy, University and Cottesmore, and Cottesmore and King. I don't recall any discussion about Abbott, and I'd be surprised to see any reference to a sidewalk on Abbott in that traffic study.
So waiting for the study isn't going to give us any information on Abbott Boulevard. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Well, thank you, Worship, and to the Director for that clarification. Then I will remove that, because I was just hoping it would be a larger catchment area, might give us some information. So I'd like to move that I withdraw that
Absolutely, you
portion.
can withdraw that. Yes. Yeah, Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. With respect to the revised amendment, we're in essence approving Abbott Boulevard if we're asking them to present a design. And from my point of view, I would rather see the justification for Abbott being the priority project relative to other sidewalks that need to be installed. I'd rather have that report before staff bothers to make a design of what it would look like. Because in my mind, if Abbott isn't on the top of the list, then we've asked them to do that work. It would mean an extra delay, I understand, but at least I'd be confident that we now have a full Town of Coburg picture of our sidewalk programs and how we make those decisions. So I would just suggest if Councillor Seguin would just remove the drawings for what the sidewalk would look like. That would happen later.
So is that that we don't make suggestions, but we make amendments?
Alrighty.
If you'd like to make an amendment.
I will.
Councillor McCarthy, we don't act on suggestions.
Well, thank you. I would like to make an amendment to remove the clause asking for drawings for a sidewalk on the east side of Abbott Boulevard. But I also would like to know what the motion would sound like without that amendment, because I'm already a little confused.
Well,
Am I allowed to ask for that?
Go. If you read it, then
With
if you read it with that amendment, then I'll ask for a seconder.
No one said this was going to be easy. Moved by myself and seconded, hopefully, by Councillor Burkett. Whereas the Committee of the Whole considered a memo from the Director of Public Works regarding construction of a new sidewalk on the east side of Abbott Boulevard, Coburg, now therefore be it resolved that Council defer the construction of a new sidewalk on the east side of Abbott Boulevard, Coburg, and direct staff to review traffic counts and prepare a report with criterion on which priority ranking is given to the installation of new sidewalks.
Now that you know what it sounds like, is there a seconder for the change? Councillor Darling. Okay. All in favor of the amendment? Okay. Now we're back to that motion that you just read. Is there any further discussion on the motion? No further discussion? And there is a seconder. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? And the motion is carried.
Your Worship, at this time we have a motion from the Committee of the Whole to award the tender for a demo used slide-in salt sand spreader.
Okay. Councillor Rowden.
Yes, Your Worship, and moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Darling, that whereas the Committee of the Whole considered a memo from the Manager of Road Sewers regarding the award of a tender for the slide-in salt sand spreader, CO-16-22. Now therefore it be resolved that Council authorize the award of the demo used slide-in salt sand spreader to FST Canada Inc. bid to D in the amount of $79,124.94, excluding HST, for a total of $80,517.54 to be funded from the 2017 vehicle replacement budget.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we have a motion from the regular council meeting regarding a request for free transit from the Coburg Public Library for the 2017 TD Summer Reading Program.
Okay, Councillor Rowden.
Yes, Your Worship, and moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Darling, that whereas regular council considered a memo from the Director of Public Works regarding a request from the Coburg Public Library for free transit for the 2017 TD Summer Reading Program. Now therefore it be resolved that council authorize free bus passes for children aged 4 to 13 who are enrolled in the Coburg Public Library Ride to Read program during the months of July and August 2017.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we have a motion from Protection Services to approve exemption of the town sign bylaw to erect 6 lawn signs promoting the Northumberland County Archives Doors Open Northumberland event, which already occurred. This is a formality.
Okay, Councillor McCarthy.
Therefore, I will only read the motion. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Rowden. Whereas the Committee of the Whole considered a memo from the Chief Building Official regarding a request for the exemption to sign bylaw 008-2009, Northumberland County Archives Doors Open Northumberland. Now therefore be it resolved that Council grant an exemption to sign bylaw 008-2009 as amended to erect 6 lawn signs that are 20 inches by 24 inches and 2 lawn signs that are 31 inches by 23 inches, subject to the finalization of details by building department staff and the issuance of a sign permit as requested by Northumberland Archives on behalf of Doors Open Northumberland. Any discussion?
Any discussion? Discussion on it? Regular council, not Committee of the Whole. Well, I do have a comment, and because I think that Doors Open Northumberland is very, very successful, and I'm going to tell you that I take credit for it because my first year on County Council, because we had Doors Open Coburg, and then we were limited in Coburg to the the number of buildings that we could show, so we couldn't continue it year after year. So, as on County Council, as the coordinator for economic development and tourism, I took the opportunity to them to do a county-wide Doors Open, and they've been doing it ever since, and it's been very, very successful. So I'm just glad to see that it's continuing, because it is a big draw. It draws a lot of tourists to the area. Yes, Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I applaud you for that, because it isn't the Doors Open program in the province has criterion, and just as the mayor suggested, you can't repeat year after year. You have to offer new opportunities, new reasons to discover a community. And so if we do it next year, it's hopefully going to be because it's countywide, but within Coburg, that it'll be other areas or buildings that will be explored. And it's not necessarily heritage. It's a way to discover your community. So thank you.
All in favor of the motion? It's carried.
Your Worship, under Planning and Development Services, we have a motion from the Committee of the Whole regarding a Culture Heritage Impact Assessment and Downtown Coburg Community Program CIP grant loan application for property located at 77 to 93 Albert Street in Coburg.
Okay, Councilor Burkett.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Darling. Whereas the Committee of the Whole considered a memo from the Heritage Planner regarding the 7793 Albert Street, Coburg requirement for a Culture Heritage Impact Assessment and Downtown CIP grant loan application. Now, therefore, be resolved that Council hereby confirms that a Cultural Heritage Impact Assessment be required at the time that an application for site plan approval is submitted for the proposed development at 77 to 93 Albert Street, Coburg, in accordance with the approved heritage permit HP-2016-026 and in accordance with the provincial policy statement 2014 and the Town of Coburg's official plan section 8314 and further that Council respectfully deny $8,500 building improvement grant and $15,000 improvement loan for the replacement of non-historic window sashes at 77 Albert Street for the following reasons. 1. Non-compliance with Section 6.3 General Program requirements of the Downtown Coburg Vitalization Community Improvement Plan, CIP, whereby information has been received submitted by the Coburg Fire Department regarding outstanding open files in which the fire department has identified concerns over possible work having been undertaken to the building without proper permits, notwithstanding attempts by the fire department staff to obtain entry to the building by the owner or owner's agents for the purpose of undertaking necessary inspections to determine compliance with the Ontario Fire Code. And number 2, further that it be premature at this time to approve a grant and loan application until comprehensive site plan approval application has been submitted to the municipality for the overall development proposal in accordance with the Planning Act and applicable policies and procedures. And I'd just like to speak to this.
Go ahead.
So just in regards to this information, the delegation tonight, I did get confirmation from the Alison Torrey-Lapere. So she stated that the Heritage District has been there since 1991, just for council's for information. The applicant can reapply once the fire code issues are, we've got to sign off on that, as well as he submits site plan, and he can come back, and of course he can come back to the next CIP deadline, which is July 21st of this year. And in regards to the site plan, I think it's like it says in the motion, it's very premature because the intent was to make it look seamless, and the planning department hasn't seen any of that. And I think that's something that we should see first before approving any kind of money whatsoever to this development going forward. Okay?
Very good. That explains it very well. Any questions? Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Chair Burkett, probably through you, Director McGlashan. One of the aspects of the delegation that I wanted clarification on from you was there was it was expressed that replacing the windows in the jail had nothing to do with the site plan or project. But then later on, and reading the document, there in fact will be units within the jail. So I just wanted to understand they are directly related. Is that correct? That, in other words, to approve a CIP for the windows, these criteria matter because the project is inside of the jail as well as the adjacent land, if I'm making sense.
Yes. So without seeing a site plan whatsoever, it's kind of hard to determine whether it will, in fact, affect the internals of that building there. So that's kind of my rationale looking at this. We haven't seen anything, so we have no idea whether it's going to affect it or not. The only thing we've seen is really the outside, that this is kind of the rendering or whatever they presented to the Heritage Committee, and under that we gave strict guidelines to say you shall do these things to have this heritage permit. And if I guess their concern is if the heritage permit runs out, because it does have a timeline, they're welcome to come back and resubmit.
Okay. So without that, we're operating on what we call good faith. Mm-hmm. Councillor McCarthy?
Thank you. And further to that, it seemed to me that the request was to give consideration to not have the impact study because of the way that a contribution's been made to the beautification and the taxation revenues to the town. However, I do believe that an official reply should be made to that request. Not necessarily does it have to come to council. So my question to Councillor Burkett is, will there be official reply to the delegation on their request to have the study waived?
Well, I believe that Mr. McGlashan was quite clear in his discussions about this, that we have to judge each project on its own merit. It has nothing to do with good performance or poor performance in the past, but each project is, and if we don't have a site plan, how do you evaluate the project?
Yes, Your Worship, I agree with that, just that a letter officially be sent to the delegation to sign off on that request. Or perhaps it's not necessary. I'm just thinking as a citizen, when they come to council and make a request, we need to reply.
Okay, I believe the clerk may be able to answer.
Your Worship, we do reply to all delegations when they come, or speakers or presenters, particularly in this instance where this motion will affect them. A letter would go formally.
Okay. Councillor Darling.
Yeah, it's just a quick question to go along with what Councillor McCarthy was. Is when he did say his plans that some townhouses in the building, are they, or have they verbally proposed to remove all the hotel rooms out of that and make it all townhouses?
Go ahead, Ms. McGlashan.
Yes, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Darling. As Councillor Burkett has indicated, we haven't received any real detailed site plans or even floor plans related to this site. All we have received, or what you saw this evening, were conceptual renderings. So my understanding is that the townhouse infill project is within the compound walls, the former prison compound walls. As for the use of the existing or former inn or jail inn, we're not 100% sure as to whether they're going to be converted into units or kept residential or commercial. I'm not sure. So at this point, it's an unknown.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Burkett?
Yes, and for council, if you'd like to go back and see the staff report, it was brought to the Heritage Committee. This was my first Heritage Committee meeting, and it was brought there on June 1st, 2016, and then it was brought to council with the staff report for the approval of the heritage permit on June 13th, 2016 as well. So it's been a year since we've given the applicant the heritage approval, and we have not seen a site plan for that spot.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried.
Your Worship, under Community Services, we have a motion from the Committee of the Whole and regular council meetings to approve various community events.
Councillor Seguin.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Burkett. Whereas the Committee of the Whole considered memos from the Parks Manager and Event Coordinator regarding approval of new municipal event applications to be held in the town of Coburg, now therefore be it resolved that Council approve the following new community events to be held in the town of Coburg. 1. Number 01753, Yes We Can Volleyball Tournament fundraising event for Duchenne Muscular Dystrophy to be held on the west end of the Coburg Beach from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. on Saturday, June 17th, 2017. 2. 017-54, P-Flag Coburg Pride event to be held from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Friday, June 23rd, 2017. 3. 017-35, Get Out on the Water Coburg Yacht Club and the Coburg Dragon Boat and Canoe Club Open House event to be held at the West Harbor, Coburg from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, June 24th, 2017. 4. Number 01730, Beyond the Blue Box Celebrates 25 Years event to be held in Victoria Park, including the bandshell from 12 noon to 10 p.m. on July 28, 2017. 5. Number 01732, Downtown Coburg Food Festival to be held on King Street and 2nd Street, Coburg from 6 a.m. for setup to 11 p.m. on Saturday, July 8, 2017. Number 6, 01739, Nostalgia, the Honoring Original Performance Everywhere, Hope fundraising gala event to be held in Victoria Park and the bandshell from 9 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. on Friday, July 14th, 2017. And finally, number 7, 017-29, the Western Ontario Division Under 13 Canoe and Kayak Regatta Championship to be held in the Coburg Harbor from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Wednesday, August the 9th, 2017.
Okay, thank you. It's moved and seconded. The only comment I'd like to make, Councillors, again, is so over the past 2 weeks I've had complaints from people who live near Victoria Park about the noise levels that have been generated. So there was the Country and Western event on the weekend, and apparently went on from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Very, very loud again. We'll just have to do a better job of monitoring the volume that's coming out of some of these events in Victoria Park right through to 10 o'clock at night.
I agree, Your Worship. I think events are great for communities, but they should not be interfering with the town people that live here and how comfortable they feel in their own homes.
Yes. Councillor Darling?
Yes, just on item 2, P-Flag Coburg Pride event to be held 2 p.m., 10 p.m. on Friday. It doesn't say where. Like, where are we approving this for?
Thank you. And I'll take an opportunity to follow up on this because I had mentioned last week I wasn't aware of this. This isn't part of the Pride Committee. It is an organization that supports the LGBTQ committee, and it's going to be road closures around right in front of Victoria Hall on the Friday. That's why I was so surprised. Usually we do these things on Saturday, but the PFLAG, which stands for Parents, Families, and Friends and Allies of the LGBTQ community, we're advised to have it Friday because there's a wedding at Victoria Square. So there are road closures downtown on the Friday. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Your Worship, maybe you can help me with this. In my calendar, I did put, I think it was July 8th, that I wrote down the Tartan Parade. I don't know if you can help me with that or if I have the wrong date, or could you help us on that one? Because I didn't see it on the listing.
Okay, I do believe it's not a parade. I do believe that on July the 8th we are having the official tartan unveiling. And it will be an opportunity for members of the public to buy paraphernalia with the Town of Coburg tartan on it. It could be ties, scarves, coffee mugs, whatever. Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to bring to the attention of Council and Director Hustwick that Saturday, June 17th, is going to be a very, very challenging day in downtown Coburg. It is the Busker Festival, it is the Coburg Highland Games Festival, and now we have the Yes We Can volleyball tournament. So there are going to be quite a few issues around parking and just the community, just the sheer presence of the community, and I'm just a little concerned, and not because I don't believe staff haven't thought it through, but we've never had the Highland Festival and the Busker Festival the same weekend. They usually are a week apart, and now we've added another event down at the beach. So just a red flag on that one in terms of preparation. And sorry, just finally, I did go back to the committee, the whole report for the PFLAG, and here are the closures. This event requires a road closure on King Street West between George and 2nd, so right in front of Victoria Hall, and that's as I described. Thank you.
And I stand corrected, it's July the 7th, Deputy Mayor, where that is Tartan Day, not July the 8th. Yes, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
And thank you. Just to add to complicate the June 17th for a very worthwhile day, that's the day we also have a Walk a Mile in Her Red Shoes campaign occurring at the same time, which I believe goes simply from normally around St. Peter's Anglican Church, and it goes all the way typically to the Coburg Police Station, and if we can still walk, which most of us can, we return back to the original spot. So I just add that because it is a major, I think, Your Worship, is the 10th year?
It's the 10th annual Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. It's a big event in the town of Coburg. I'll be walking in the same shoes for the 10th time. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Darning?
Yes, so I understand we are approving the closure of King Street from George to for this item 2?
Yes. That's part of it, is it not, Councillor Seguin? Yes. Okay, any other discussion? Yes.
Is King Street not going to be closed then that day for the Busker Festival? Or this is the Friday, is it not the Saturday? That's
It's a Saturday, yeah.
Friday.
The bus.
No.
Okay. Are we good? So, just so, Councillor Darning, what is it? Okay. Now we're good. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we now have the reading of the bylaws.
Deputy Mayor Henderson?
Your Worship and members of Council, we have 3 bylaws for presentation, namely a bylaw to amend bylaw number 95, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize an agreement with the Royal Bank of Canada respecting the long-term financing requirements associated with the construction of the Headworks building at the Water Pollution Control Plant number 1. And I'll continue to read a bylaw to amend bylaw number 96, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize an agreement the Royal Bank of Canada respecting the long-term financing requirements associated with the construction of the Public Works Parks facility, building number 7, Northern Industrial Park. A bylaw to authorize the transfer of title to certain lands by the Corporation of the Town of Coburg for property located at 388 John Street, Coburg. And I move first reading be given these bylaws.
Seconder? Councillor Burkett? All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, I move that Council go into committee whole for the second reading of these bylaws.
Seconder? Councillor Burkett? All in favor?
A bylaw to amend bylaw number 95, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize an agreement with the Royal Bank of Canada respecting the long-term financing requirements associated with the construction of the headworks building at the Water Pollution Control Plant number 1. And I move for second reading.
Okay, any discussion on the second reading? Deputy Mayor Henderson?
I didn't know if Mr. Davey wants to make any comment at all on this.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Davey. Just a brief explanation.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, these first two bylaws are both just amending bylaws that we already had in place towards the end of 2016. This is to do with extending the date on the temporary construction financing that we have on these two capital projects from the end of June till the end of September, with the idea being that these two projects can be finally completed and permanent financing be put in place at that time.
So the only change to the bylaw is the actual end date itself?
That is correct.
Okay. This has been moved for second reading. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
A bylaw to amend bylaw number 96, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize an agreement with the Royal Bank of Canada respecting the long-term financing requirements associated with the construction of the Public Works Parks Facility, Building Number 7, Northern Industrial Park. I move is taken for second reading.
Okay, I think the same explanation applies to this one. And any discussion on it? All in favor? For the second reading. Okay.
A bylaw to authorize the transfer of title to certain lands by the Corporation of the Town of Coburg for property located at 388 John Street, Coburg. I move for second reading in this bylaw.
Okay, discussion. All in favor? Carried.
Let the committee rise.
All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, the bylaw is a bylaw to amend bylaw number 95, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize an agreement with the Royal Bank of Canada respecting the long-term financing requirements associated with the construction of the headworks building at the Water Pollution Control Plant number 1, a bylaw to amend bylaw 96, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize an agreement with the Royal Bank of Canada respecting the long-term financing requirements associated with the construction of the Public Works Parks Facility, Building Number 7, Northern Industrial Park, a bylaw to authorize the transfer of title to certain lands by the Corporation of the Town of Coburg for property located at 388 John Street, Coburg, have received both first and second readings without amendments. And I move third reading of these bylaws and that they finally be passed and ordered signed by the Mayor and the Municipal Clerk with the corporate seal affixed.
Seconder, Councillor Darling. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, we now have the Council Coordinator announcements.
Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to ask for the indulgence of Council to consider a motion of reconsideration on the PFLAG event, community event that hasn't sat well. I know for a number of us, and I really would like us to reconsider that. So procedurally, I'm wondering, I think it requires 2/3 majority to open up the consideration of the PFLAG event Friday, June 23rd, if that's the next step, and then I'll put my motion.
So, go ahead, Ms. Brace.
Your Worship, it would have to be moved by the person that originally moved the motion and seconded it, if you're reconsidering.
I moved it and Councillor Burkett seconded. Can we ask why you're bringing this forward?
Yes, a number of reasons. First of all, it doesn't sit well with me to have road closures in downtown Coburg on a Friday. Usually we have them Saturday. This event is one-off with the one group, and usually downtown street closures involve the DBIA. They had no awareness of this event. And I'm thinking it's not to not have the event, it's just not have the road closures. And for example, could they move to Rotary Park? They have bouncies, they have tents, they have all sorts of things. In other words, have your event on the Friday because you can't have it Saturday, but the road closures will have a huge impact on the downtown business community. and for the one group. So I want to support the PFLAG parents. I'm just thinking for what they're doing, they might be better off in another location. But then again, I don't even know if Rotary Park is available. Thank you.
Well, it's quite possible they could close off 2nd Street, which wouldn't have the same impact, and it would give them a downtown location. So, Councillor Seguin, I'll leave it up to you if you would like to have it reconsidered.
Well, if that's, to me, that would be the optimum solution. I mean, 2nd Street was closed all day today, and it didn't seem to affect anything. It wasn't Friday. But would that suffice, Councillor McCarthy? Okay.
The only person impacted was me, was because I lost my parking spot. But that's okay. So, Councillor Seguin, then maybe you could make a motion to reconsider the location.
Okay. You okay with that? Seconded? Okay. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Burkett, as per the original motion, that the number 2, 017-54, the PFLAG Coburg Pride event to be held from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Friday, June 23rd, 2017, to be relocated on 2nd Street only, as opposed to other road closures.
Okay.
Is that clear?
That's clear.
Okay.
But it could happen in front of Victoria Hall as well, but the only street you're going to close is 2nd Street.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Darling.
Yes, just further to that, I'd like to thank Councillor McCarthy for considering that, and Councillor Sagan for making the reconsideration, because it does not state in the motion you read where the location is, so we're approving it to be on 2nd Street, and I think that's a very good point. I was uncomfortable with that and wasn't quite sure what to do with it, but yeah, thank you to my council partners on that one.
Okay. All in favor? Carried.
Your Worship, I believe we now have council coordinator announcements.
Okay, I'll start off with what I consider to be good news for the downtown. On Saturday, we had 4 business openings. There was the Ale House on Division Street, the George and Orange, which is a tap and grill, obviously located at the corner of George and Orange Street, the Rustic Bean Coffee House on King Street West, and the Little Underground, which is located in King Street East. Councillor Seguin was also able to attend 3 of the 4 events, along with a handful of people who followed us around, but very little pedestrian traffic that day, so he didn't attract an awful lot of attention. But it's important to note that Julie Savard, our ECDEV Small Business Support Resource, has already paid visits to all 4 of these new businesses before Saturday and worked extensively with 2 of them on their business plans. 4 new businesses are good for the downtown, as each one of them will bring more foot traffic to the downtown, which is what we're looking for, more pedestrian traffic. And Wendy Gibson, in her role as Economic Development Officer, continues to promote downtown, not just as Economic Development Officer, but also as a person and a downtown promoter, because on Girls' Night Out, she brought 12 women downtown and guided them around the town and showed all the newest of the business openings that are in downtown. So that all bodes very well for downtown Coburg, and we have our economic development support staff working with them and with us. Moving on to the next item, as part of a working group for the Intergenerational Steering Committee, I attended our 3rd session last Thursday. Now, if you recall, Madeline Corelli of Community Training and Development Center won a Global Best Award for her work with youth employment. And when she received her award, she met a professor from Western Ontario who also won a Global Best Award for her work with seniors. So out of this meeting came the idea of combining the 2 initiatives to focus on creating jobs for youth that will benefit seniors. Given the high numbers of seniors in Northumberland County, it makes great sense to identify job opportunities for our youth that will lead to local employment for them and supply services and products that will benefit seniors. So that's the objective of this Intergenerational Steering Committee. And it's interesting that out of the surveys we've conducted, we discovered several important issues. Young people want to work locally. Students don't have a good understanding of where their jobs of the future are, and they don't know what college or university courses to pursue that will lead to jobs. So those are all of the things that we will be working on with the students. First of all, educating them on what the job opportunities are, what the educational background they should have to get those jobs, or what educational backgrounds are going to give them the best opportunity for any job. And then we will be connecting them with the needs of seniors and start to work on developing local employment opportunities through that. So that's my report. Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Worship. I have a few items. First of all, I shared with Council, and I'll share with the public, the reason for the financial quarterly report being removed, because at this point we both decided from general government and corporate services we need more discussion on the topic, and that's what we're going to do. And the goal is to return it back to this floor for discussion as soon as possible. Development charges, we've had 3 independent meetings, 3+ hours each and every time, with different developers at the table. It's been a very well-attended meeting. And Mr. McGlashan, correct me, but I believe the goal is to try and get the document back to Council for June 19th, roughly, approximately, so that we can meet our agreement. As you can see in the package, it says development charges review July 1st, 2017. So I believe we're going to meet that goal, and it will come to the Council floor. We're very close to bringing forward as well Council's strategic plan after it's been reviewed by the CEO and directors, and it's very close to coming back for your consideration. Similarly, the municipal community grants, I'd like to thank in particular our councillors involved, and that's Councillor McCarthy and Councillor Seguin, as well as staff. We've made a number of amendments, and we hope to have that back hopefully in June and at the very latest July, knowing that these new amendments, if approved by Council, will take effect for our new grants coming in for October 31st. From a bylaw perspective, it's my understanding that we wish Peter McLean well. He left us after short order, but was hired, I believe, in the canal system to oversee that and that role. And I apologize for not knowing the name. I heard it today. No, Peterbilt Leflocks, and we hired today a new representative to represent the town of Coburg, and I apologize, I have yet to meet her, but I'm understanding she's starting, I think, today. In terms of policy and bylaws, we have a number that will be happening over the summer. A long list. We have the consolidated names for municipal facilities, parks and roads policy, banner policy, risk management policy, marriage ceremony policy, and today we learned as well that Bill 68 received royal assent, which really starts to deal with the Municipal Act, the Conflict of Interest Act. There's about 5 acts bounded within one, and when the clerks get the information with due process, we'll start to deal with those and bring those back at the appropriate time to Council. So you can expect a lot of forthcoming changes in a number of policies as well as the Town of Coburg procedures. So you can see it is going to be a busy summer leading to the fall, and that is my report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Henderson. Councillor McCarthy, a question?
Yes, Your Worship. I was just wondering if the Deputy Mayor could give any sense of the urban agricultural policy and the scent policy, if they're going to be considered within this term, or is it for future consideration?
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Yes, I forgot to put that to my list. The policy policy is still on our list, and we'll still be gathering information and dealing with it. In terms of the urban, I would say over time it's going lower down, because when we compare to our facilities policy, our risk management policy, a lot of development charges, municipal grants policy, strategic plan, and now with Bill 68, I'm not saying it's not important, but if I were to rank it, I have to admit it would be near the bottom of the lot. So we haven't removed it. It's still there. We're still gathering evidence, but I'm not sure if you'll see that particular one during 2017.
Okay. Councillor Darling.
Thank you, Your Worship. Within the parks, the waterfront users needs assessment and detailed design. May 31st, we held a public open house in Design Charette, which was held at the CCC and was very well attended. And the surveys are now on the website. Hard copies can be picked up at Victoria Hall, the library, and the CCC. Currently, we have approximately 1,100 surveys that have been received, and the deadlines for surveys is June 19th. We will be sending out a one-page notification that the survey is out. It will be mailed to all the residents in town, and to request the members of our community to complete the survey. We'd like to get as many as possible. The Recreation Department, again, I'd like to congratulate the Coburg Cougars from the RBC Cup for a magnificent job. I attended the country festival this weekend, and they had the cup there, and were quite enthused about presenting it to all the fans. A reminder that the Kodiaks had their first game on May 28th. I'd like to remind all our fans to support our Kodiaks in the Club Cross. And this weekend is a big weekend for the pickleball. We have our big tournament in Coburg this weekend. So if anybody wants to know about pickleball and support that, they can see that at the CCC. Unfortunately, with our marina, we're still in a bit of trouble with the high water, that we can't provide hydro to the docks because of the junction boxes being underwater. And the campground, we got a nice report in the campground this morning that due to the Country Wild weekend, the campground had higher capacity than normal for this type of year. So a lot of people combined the two events, took a weekend in the campground and attended the festival, which was good for our tourism. And just again, we had it earlier this evening, but the U16 fastball tournament, all the support they can get for that, and they're still looking for volunteers. And just one last item, I would like to thank all my cohorts on council for a very interesting debate on Abbott Boulevard. I thought it was well presented by all members, and the mutual respect in the room showed, and I think that speaks well of this council. Thank you.
And if I may, Councillor Darling, I did have a discussion with our communications officer today, Ashley Purdy, and the CAO about doing a mail-out for the survey to advise people there's a survey. And so it's not going to cost very much, but because we're just going to do it now, by the time we develop the little postcard type mail-out with the information on it and get it out, we're going to extend the survey date until June the 26th. Another week.
Okay, that's good to know. I was wondering if we were going to do that. And
so
yep.
that was just something that the CAO and I talked about this afternoon. If we're going to do the mail-outs, let's make sure we get them out and give people time to react.
Okay, I'll revise my thing. Mail-outs for June 26th.
Thank you. Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question through you to Councillor Darling and possibly Director Hustwick. I know we have a tremendous workload in the Department of Recreation and Culture. However, I'm looking at those signature events of the curling, the Ontario 55+ games, and now the RBC Cup. And the motions that we made to support them, the agreements. When would a report be anticipated to come to council on the outcome of those events?
We discussed that this morning at the coordinators meeting, and we are looking into them. There was no date set as to when they were going to be out, but Director Hustwick was going to get back to me on that in a future date, but they will be coming.
Okay, Councillor Rowden.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you there, Councillor Darling, for that comment in regards to our debate on the Abbott Boulevard. It certainly was very well done, and respect for council members. So. My first thing on the agenda tonight is, Your Worship, I think you sent a letter out in regards to walk a mile in your shoes, and I will be supporting you tonight and in that walk, as I have done for the last 10 years. So, thank you for going in it, because I'm not very good at walking on high heel shoes.
Neither am I.
Anyways, the James Street construction is progressing very well, and I think that the residents will find that it's closed right at John Street and James, and it's with a major intersection in that area. And I believe the residents are able to get in and back and forth to their houses. The contractor is working very well with them to make sure that nobody's having an inconvenience too much. Work is also underway at the Hardin Street Bridge. You'll notice that the detour signs are up, and the contractor's trying to keep the access open for pedestrians just to make it so it's possible for them to walk that route if possible. A public information session, mark your calendars, for the stormwater pond behind Canada Pallet is being held this Thursday at 6 p.m. at the Chemical Room at the CC Center, and this is in regards to that pond that will be built in the next couple of years, likely that will affect the downtown flooding if the roads crew is out repairing sidewalks deficiencies, and based on the annual sidewalk inspections, cleaning catch basins and cutting a lot of grass, and they're trying to keep up with the grass in between rainstorms, and I understand that's quite a task this year, because even Parks Department are getting behind and the grass gets pretty long. I have the privilege of being the co-chair with our inspector Darling at the OPP station, and it's for Northumberland Safe Communities. And as I could not attend too many meetings in the past year, I'm just catching up on a lot of things that are happening in the last 2 weeks. And one major event was at the Coburg Apple Blossom Festival last weekend, and we had a booth there in regards to safe preventing safety, and there was a great turnout. Got a lot of positive response on some of the things that's been happening over the year, which is you'll notice people riding bicycles and walking have chosen the Brighten Up stage, so they're wearing bright clothing, and I think you'll notice that quite well around the town, more so than ever before. And I know the Bicycle Action Group, they have promoted it as well, so it makes people more visible so that the car drivers can see them even at night. And we had a seminar at the health unit last week, and it was for first responders, and I don't think people realize how hard the first responders take serious accidents sometimes, and we're trying to put a program forward with them for their psychological effects after an accident. And I believe that more and more of the organizations like Northumberland County are getting involved, and the province is getting involved through the OPP. They're putting more people like we have in Coburg, Chaplain Andrew Truder, to talk to anyone that is in responding to these accidents, because when they get some pretty rough circumstances sometimes. So anyways, that's my report, Your Worship, and for this day.
Thank you, Councillor Rowden. And you're right, post-traumatic stress disorder is becoming more and more a fact of life among first responders, and we're certainly recognizing that, at the county with our EMS and even our local police. Councillor Burkett. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. A short report. Just that the Accessibility Advisory Committee had a presentation from the Chief Fire Inspector, Aaron Blair, on preparing an escape plan because of our work with emergency preparedness for persons with disabilities. A reminder to the community and anybody who might be listening, or the networks that you are in, there is a vacancy for on the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and I'm going to have to ask the clerk if Ms. Brayson remembers the deadline for application.
Next Friday at 4 o'clock.
Thank you. So we're a very robust, vibrant committee, and it's really worth participating in. The only other announcement is with Coburg Police Services. And I just want to say that Thursday, June 1st, 2017, it did not rain when there was the official opening of the new entrance of the Coburg Police Services. And it was quite a moment because there were a number of initiatives that were being recognized there. First of all, we raised the Pride flag. June is Pride Awareness Month, and Chief Kailu and Deputy Chief Paul Vandergraft, as well as many of the staff at Coburg Police Services, are tireless supporters of the LGBTQ community who were present to raise the flags. So as you walk by, there's a series of flags just to the east of the building, and the Pride flag will be there for the month. Then we walked into the entrance, and we were shown the new reception area for people who come to Coburg Police Services, and it is completely remodeled, and it is up to the standards of the accessibility. The kiosk is designed at the lower level, which is required now, and the big centerpiece is the accessible washroom. It is remarkable. It has a shower, and the intention was and it's a one-unit washroom, that the homeless could come there to clean up. The intention is to make it a welcoming place for anyone who comes through the doors. And although the permanent furniture is not in place, believe me, it is a welcoming environment if you walk into Coburg Police Services. The drawings for the new accessible entrance were in place, and that will be coming, and it will really enhance entrance into the police services. The accessible entrance will still remain, which is at the side of the building, but I encourage members of the community, just go down there and see. It's just remarkable. But I want to finish with sharing Chaplain Andrew Truder's words at the ceremony, which was attended by the Deputy Mayor, who brought greetings from Council and Councillor Rowden. And it brought me to tears. He did the dedication, and he said that for those who come to the Coburg Police Services requiring assistance, or for those who come to the Coburg Police Services who need to be restrained to prevent harm to others, no matter who you are, when you leave the Coburg Police Services, you are a better person. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. And I missed that on Thursday, but as I said on Thursday, I was tied up at the Intergenerational Steering Committee meeting, and I know there was people asking where I was, and that's exactly where I was. Councillor Burkett.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I have a few items tonight to speak to Council on. The first off is obviously, as I stated earlier tonight, the official plan was approved May 18th this year. Save and exempt the De Palma lands up by Walmart. That's the only thing. But we were able to approve the rest, that's very exciting. Being, like the Deputy Mayor said, over 6 years in the making. So that's a very great item. The other item I want to bring to people's attention is June 22nd. We're going to be having a public open house at the Columbus Community Center from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in regards to the tannery lands. So that's open to the public. So I hope we see a lot of participation in that event to see what we can do and shape that plan. Other items, I just wanted to, make the public aware. The mall obviously has released a press release themselves, but for anyone wondering what is going on there, they are not demolishing the mall. They are putting new fronts on for Paul Max and CarQuest. That's over by the Staples end, so that's why it's fenced off right now. And then in the old Sears store, they're going to be putting a Hart department store. So that's some great news as well. Over, you'll see at Pioneer there on Division Street that they're kind of tearing up that. So they're moving into where Menchie's was and utilizing that space for their payment and doing, I guess, kind of like a little store there. So that's some really good news as well. So that's going to hopefully clean up that front of that area there. Other items that I have are over in the Van Dyke Canadian Tire lands just west to Canadian Tire. You'll see some kind of movement going on there. That's it. What they're doing is they're taking dirt from the Kerr Street Park lands and moving it up there because they have to kind of raise that up. They are bringing back their site plan for to extend the approval. That will be coming back to council, but they have to bring a lot of dirt down there to build it up. So right now they're just bringing the dirt from the parklands to get that out of the way so they can finish that park, which is a good news thing for sure. And we've received some things that they're obviously in review right now. Cedar Shores Estates, we've received the first submission, as well as there's one more. I think that was everything. Oh, sorry, Rondo subdivision. We have second submission for review for the team, and that is my report.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Burkett. Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question through you to perhaps Director McGlashan. With the change in the mall setting, I've had a number of people come to me about accessible parking spaces in the mall, and I just wondered if there was any opportunity here, because the structure's changing, to revisit the accessible parking spots in the mall.
Director McGlashan.
Yes, through you to Councillor McCarthy. Because the proposal that's underway at the mall is a renovation, it simply requires building permits to undertake that work. However, we have taken the liberty to pass along information regarding accessibility in terms of the barrier-free connections from the parking area to the sidewalks, and we can certainly also raise some of the barrier-free parking spaces as well. It would be out of courtesy on their part to do that, but we can certainly make them aware of it, and hopefully they can do that to better their image as well as provide for accessible spaces.
Councillor Seguin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll try and keep it short. The Canada 150 events, Confederation Tea is coming up on July the 4th. Purchased my tickets today, and hopefully as many people as possible will show up in period costume. There's lots available at the Costume House, so excited about that. The other details for Canada Week are online and in the brochures throughout the town. On May 30th, I had the pleasure of emceeing the very successful Coburg Celebrate the Maple Leaf, sponsored by the Coburg and District Historical Society. It was a Canada 150 event. And Alison Torrey-Lapierre gave a beautiful history of the Canadian flag, and it was really well attended, and I think everyone there had a good time. A sad note tonight with regard to the Art Gallery of Northumberland. We have received a letter of resignation from the Art Gallery director, James Campbell. I will just read a short paragraph from his resignation letter. It is with deep sadness that I must announce my resignation as director of the AGN after a brief few months. Serious health issues now positively addressed and will continue to be for months to come, and family priorities have left me no other choice. While facing these debilitating issues, it became impossible for me to dedicate the effort and passion required to fulfill my duties at the gallery. And the AGN so richly deserves passionate and sustained strength in leadership as it surges ahead. We really enjoyed working with James Campbell. He was a treasure, and his knowledge about galleries will be missed. And we, with regret, we accepted his resignation. Also on the art gallery tomorrow night here in the actual gallery, there is a community town hall meeting to discuss from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. To discuss the future of the art gallery and what people would like to see changed or stay the same. Again, that's here tomorrow night. The Coburg Downtown BIA, I really enjoyed walking through the town with the mayor. Took some great pictures, and I think it was a great event. Missed the last one because I represented the mayor and the town at the local cadet review. I had a lot of fun watching these young people parade up and down. They are so proud of what they have accomplished, and you were missed. All these folks were asking me. I said, oh, he's a very busy man. He's probably got 3 other things going on today. And again, we've mentioned the Busker and Art Festival set for downtown Coburg on the 17th of June. Had a meeting this morning with regard to the Arts Town project. Warren McCarthy is the lead on that. It's progressing well with 4 windows. And tomorrow morning at the DBIA meeting, we're going to be discussing plans for a possible art celebration to finalize the conclusion of the Artstown project, which has been very successful. The Downtown Marketing Partnership, the 2017 marketing plan has been reviewed by the Downtown Coalition, and I will be meeting with the chair of the coalition, Carol McCann, this week to discuss the revisions that the coalition made before the plan comes to council in the few weeks ahead. Central Committee, we met this last week on Friday. It's comprised of local service clubs, the media, and myself as the council rep to discuss the final plans prior to the Waterfront Festival. And there are some concerns as well on the high levels of the water and how that will affect various elements of the Waterfront Festival. Farmers Market continues to be flourishing. I was there again on Saturday. They're very happy with their season. It was busy. People are buying fresh food and using the hashtag shop local and eat local. So cool. They're really enjoying getting the media coverage out there. And finally, the Coburg Public Library, the official launch date for their new library app that we can use on our smartphones and tablets, it will be on Monday, June 26th. Tammy Robinson, the CAO of the library, is coming to our council in a date in the very near future to give us a demonstration on this new app that you can renew and do all kinds of neat stuff with regard to the library. And we look forward to seeing that, and hopefully we're smart enough to figure out how the app works once we download it onto our phones. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Seguin, and thank you for filling in for me at the cadet parade. Obviously, I couldn't be 2 places at the same time. Okay.
Your Worship, we have a closed session.
Deputy Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Worship. The action recommended the council meet in closed session in accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, Coburg Heritage Advisory Committee applications, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, a proposal for transfer and sale of land negotiations.
Seconder, Councillor Burkett. All in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn, Councillor Burkett.